welcome once again to the Cine-Files, where each week we enter the world of a great film, we explore its themes, the history, the filmmaking, and the influence it has on us today. My name is Steve Morris. I'm a filmmaker and directing instructor in Los Angeles, California.
Hello, everyone. My name is John Roca. I'm a voiceover actor, host, writer, producer, all those things that you've heard about in the news, on your Twitter feeds and social medias. And I'm rested and relaxed after a nice break.
Me too.
Yeah, it's been nice not to be able to relax and chill out, and I've been really selfish with my time.
Me too.
Because I've been so busy this year. So I am looking forward to what we're doing today.
This is something we've been talking about literally since we started the show.
We've been talking about this for years,
Yeah.
and then since we started the show as well,
Yeah. And this is we're in the month of Kane. Mm-hmm. It was finally time. I felt like we had enough practice under our belts.
Yeah, I'm glad
to
you
get
finally
into it.
came around. Yeah.
Look, I was scared. I mean, this is, this is the big one.
That's the difference between Steve and I. What's the quote? I go where fools I rush in. Where fools rush in is me.
Yeah.
And Steve is more methodical and he is more cautious. And thank God that he is, because sometimes that's the best approach.
I think it's a good balance.
Yeah, it's a good balance. I agree.
It's a good balance.
I agree.
Sometimes you rush in and force me to follow, and that's challenges me and makes
Sometimes you grab my hood and keep me from rushing in so we don't fall into the crackness.
We're into the month of Kane. We had a great conversation about Orson Welles just in general.
Yes.
We've done our huge podcast on Citizen Kane itself, and now we are doing, for the first time on the Cine-Files, an entire movie commentary track.
Yeah. We had tried this a little bit with
the little
Apocalypse
experiment.
Now.
Yeah,
like 10, and that was like months ago.
That was a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago. And people liked the commentary. Yeah. So we thought, well, this is going to be a month of Kane. We might as well give what is arguably our favorite film, maybe collectively.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always have problems with that word favorite because I don't know what it means, but this is the well, this is why I'm not on the top 10 show.
You will be. You will be. Trust me, you will be. At some point. But yeah, this is the number one film for me, and I imagine it's your.
It is probably, I agree, the greatest film ever made.
Thank you. So that's the approach we're going to have to it, but conversations about it throughout the commentary as well, about why we love the film, and maybe those of you who have seen it only once or maybe are seeing it for the first time as you watch the commentary with us will understand why we love the film. And maybe you don't
think someone is going to do the commentary as the first time they're ever seeing this movie?
Some people listen to our episodes and then go see the film for the first time. What's the difference?
I don't know. To be having Citizen Kane, the greatest, your first time seeing it, hearing our voices. Look, we have beautiful voices.
if you do say so yourself. But I think it's some people will do that because people have said numerous times in comments that we kind of teach them a little bit about film. And so as we watch it, it's a way for maybe some people to go, because we're different, man. The new generation now, the millennials, they don't care. They don't care about spoilers or anything, unless it's Star Wars or some shit. But something like an old movie like this, they'll watch it with us, kind of enjoy it, and then go back and watch it themselves and compare our notes with their own mental experience with the film.
I had a question for you before we start.
Sure.
When is the last time you sat down and watched this movie?
Maybe 3 or 4 months ago on TCM. It was flipping channels, and I caught it right as news on the march. I was like, well, that's my night.
Yeah, okay. You're in.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. Because I teach it in class. Okay. So I have, over the last year, probably twice, I go through over 2 classes, the whole film.
Yes.
Like stop and start. So it takes about 5 hours to go through it. So I've done that, but I don't think I've just sat down to watch it in a couple of years.
Couple of years?
Yeah.
Wow. I can't go past months without watching it at least once, and even in the theater. They show it at the Egyptian or at the Arrow. I love to go see it in the theater.
It's amazing.
And in fact, I went with a friend one time, and when we came out, she said to me, she's like, "I think I understand you even better now, having seen the film." And I'm like, "Yeah, because the film really does speak to me in so many ways."
It is. It is a lot. It is one that you can never stop analyzing it. And I think, without further ado, should we start our commentary?
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed our episode about the film last week. So maybe.
Which, by the way, just so you know, we haven't recorded that yet. Yeah. We're going to release it.
Don't give him a peek behind the curtain, man.
Well, I did just say I hadn't seen the movie in a couple of years, so it made sense that we haven't actually recorded that yet.
All right, but this is your first time seeing it in 2 years.
Probably. I mean, I've taught it in class. So I've watched it, but not just sitting and watching it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah. So here's what we're going to do. So hopefully you have your Blu-ray, your iTunes download, your Amazon download,
whatever it is,
your VHS tape, Laserdisc loaded up.
Yes.
On the opening frame, paused, and that's what we have right here. And John's going to do a countdown.
Okay.
And hit play. And if you hit play when he does, we are in sync.
Okay.
Go ahead. Take it away.
3, 2, 1. All right, here we go.
This is it, friends.
You should be seeing the RKO.
Yeah. In beautiful 4:3 aspect ratio.
Yeah, well, some things don't convert to 16:9.
And shouldn't be.
Yeah, well, 1941, I don't think they were thinking about that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. A Mercury production.
Was it set? Do you think it was shown in 4:3 or
Of course,
16:9?
no, all movies were.
Okay.
No, they didn't introduce widescreen until TV, until it's late 40s, early 50s, and then they started to introduce widescreen.
Look at this, how it just bursts onto the screen. Immediately grabs your attention.
Yeah.
Very bright black and white. And this is the 4K or the super adjusted one that they did. They cleaned it up.
And we start with beautiful Bernard Herrmann music, and immediately with no trespassing, looking through the fence, it is forbidding, and it's telling you, don't come in.
Yeah.
This is forbidden. You don't get to know what happens here.
But because we're human beings, our curiosity is piqued and we have to know. So it's a brilliant move by Wells.
Right at the beginning it says no.
Yeah.
And then we force our way through this fence.
Like, you don't tell me no. I want to know.
I want to know what it is.
All right.
Well, and this is, a classic structure. Citizen Kane is a mystery.
Yes.
That is what it is. From the beginning to end, this is a mystery. And there's something I want to talk about, a very technical thing, but it's called eye trace.
Okay.
And what eye trace is that your eye immediately goes to one spot on the frame. And in this case, it's that light in the window. And that light in the window, from cut to cut to cut through all these dissolves, will remain in exactly the same place.
Oh, wow.
So you're pulling the eye through each shot.
Look at that.
Even in this one where it's a reflection,
Yeah.
where our eye is still drawn to that place as we move in. And of course, what is the most important place in this movie?
Yeah.
It's so right at the beginning, Orson is doing something so technically advanced in his first film. Have you ever seen that before?
No, I've never looked at it that way.
Yep.
How incredible.
Yep.
To me, I'm more caught up in the decay because that's what
course.
he's showing you, that this is where this is what happened to the man internally, as well as they say a man's house or a person's house represents who they are internally.
Well, and
that's amazing. The light is there the whole time.
And it's this mix of
Fascinating.
Isn't that? It's this mix of splendor and as you say, decay.
Yeah.
And things are and now we've finally moved up to the window.
Yeah.
And that's a build to a light going out. And I get chills. I just got chills when it happened. Yeah.
Well, because he's dead.
Yeah.
His light is about to go out.
It's about to. Well, that's always weird that it goes out and then it comes back. I always find that a little strange.
Because that would make sense for Charles Foster Kane.
I guess. And now one of the most amazing shots in the history of film.
Oh man.
And there it is, Rosebud.
It still gets me, Steve.
And this next shot, this is called abstract space. We don't know, like, what are we looking at?
Right.
Where is the relationship between things? We don't understand it.
Right.
And of course, looking through that snow globe, everything is set up for the end of the film. Everything is set up right here in the very, very beginning.
By the way, Shannon McClung gave me this amazing T-shirt for Christmas. That is a Citizen Kane shirt. That is the snow globe. Incredible. Maybe the greatest present I've ever gotten in my entire life.
In film, there's also hard cuts and soft cuts. This is a hard cut. Here it comes. Boom.
Right. And immediately it rips you out of this very sad death.
Yeah.
Because we don't know who this person is. We know it's him, possibly, because when you're watching for the first time, you don't know who it is. You think it's him, then this thing, and then we right into this incredibly brilliant way of giving you exposition about this man's life.
Right.
Right.
Well, and Citizen Kane does a thing which I don't think it had ever been done in film before, in my knowledge, which is stylistically, it shifts from section to section. So the opening section is this somber, slow, forbidding, surreal thing. And then we go into this newsreel, and it is, and again, if you would watch films at the time, this was totally normal.
Yeah.
This is exactly how newsreels felt. And here we see the building of Xanadu, which of course is modeled after San Simeon and William Randolph Hearst, which I was just at about 4 or 5 months ago.
I've got to make a pilgrimage one of these days.
Weird. It is a weird place.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
But also what's great about this is it immediately gives you what you need to know about this guy, and it immediately sets the precedent that you are never going to hear from him directly, him telling a story. The story is, this entire man's story, his entire life is told by someone else's memories, interpretation or what we see in the newsreel, a script that's written out for this guy to read as a voiceover of a news piece.
Well, it's all from the outside.
Yeah.
It starts with no trespassing.
It's the Rashomon thing.
Well, and it's also, I think, and this is something you see in Orson Welles throughout his entire career, including we talked about in Touch of Evil.
Yeah.
You never get to know what a person really is.
Right.
You know?
Well, Marlene Dietrich says that in Touch of Evil.
What does it matter what you say about people? You know?
Right.
Like this is, and that's what this movie is.
Yeah.
We're going to look at this guy and look at this guy and look at this guy. In the end, we're never going to understand him as much as you try.
No.
I don't understand him.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can understand a piece of him.
Yeah.
But he goes through so many, even at the end, you're like, does that really explain him? And even the reporters say that, right?
Yeah.
Does that really explain this guy?
Yeah. Yeah. And here we see our first sort of real good image of Orson in the old age makeup. And what I love is one of the things he does throughout this newsreel is just his contradictions, explaining how different people viewed this hugely powerful figure.
And how big he was because the newspapers are in multiple languages.
Oh, yeah.
How Charles Foster Kane was an international person. And so he was known the world over for the things that he did.
Yeah, I love this shot, by the way. So now we're looking at the decayed newspaper, and I love the guys with the roller skates in front of it.
It's
just great set design, great. Yeah.
Right. Obviously not random in a way that's like, who cares? But it's so brilliantly random in that way that he puts these people in roller skates and has them outside the decayed place. Yeah.
Well, everything, it's funny. I say this in my film classes all the time. Everything in a movie is a choice.
Yes.
Is you have an opportunity to show something. Yeah. Well, it's always a choice. Well, you might not have made one. You have every time you have an opportunity to go, well, what's this guy look like? Let's put him in roller skates.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And now you've made an interesting choice.
Yeah. And I want to go real quick to the age makeup is still incredible now.
Absolutely.
Even now in 2017, 2018 for this.
Well, that and paired with Orson Welles' performance, which
24 years old.
Yeah.
Insane.
Yeah.
I couldn't tie my shoes at 24 years old.
It must have been hard for you to get around.
I had slippers for a long time. Loafers.
Did you have the pennies in them?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And this is our first shot of
Thatcher.
Thatcher, yeah.
Yeah. And Thatcher, this is that George Coulouris? No.
George Coulouris is the other guy.
Who's Thatcher?
Oh, I can't remember right now, but we can look it up.
He's one of the Mercury Theater guys who's been around and did all the radio stuff. And his performance is great too.
He doesn't get enough credit for the old performance he does as well. It's fantastic. Him and Bernstein, Everett Sloan are amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I love the way he speaks so slowly and how to talk. I love this. It's so
well, and they're doing a thing that we see a lot now, but wasn't done then, which is how do you act as if you're in a documentary?
Yes.
And that is different from acting in a movie. He's talking in a very, very natural way, not a natural acting way, but in I'm just reading these prepared remarks.
Yes.
And his relationship with Kane is fascinating.
As a character.
Yes.
Yes.
Because on the one hand,
it is George Coulouris. I'm sorry. It is George
Coulouris.
Thatcher, yes.
On the one hand, he is a horrible father figure guy. Absolutely. But on the other hand, he does care about him on some level.
Well, as much as he can, because here's the thing about Kane. What we find out is he's actually a very sensitive person. In the midst of all these money-hungry, greedy people in business, he is actually a very sensitive person. So he wanted to be loved throughout the whole movie, but he is constantly surrounded by people who have no ability to show him the love that he wants. Right? Even Bernstein, to a degree, is basically a sycophant, a glorified sycophant of Welles. It's a friendship, but he's a sycophant. Joseph Cotten is the only one that really calls him out on his shit and shows him real love, but he can't accept it because he doesn't understand how to grapple with it anymore.
Well, this is, and as we go right back to his childhood, how you interpret love based on his mother, his father, and then Thatcher, and the world that he was raised in, it's pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And of course, now we see, by the way, these different sides of Kane and the shot of him and Hitler. And I love Welles' performance there. So he looks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, he does. And that's a great Hitler, a great looking Hitler, by the way.
It is a great looking Hitler. And this, again, jumping all over the place in time in the shot at the White House. Yeah.
And it's even more resonant now for us in 2018, Steve, because that's how we know history growing up, even as kids, and even kids nowadays. They see these newsreel footages. You see them on the History Channel. You see them on National Geographic Channel. All these channels, they show this old newsreel footage and the speed at which they're moving. All of that is
and the grain and the scratches in the print.
Yep.
And even you don't want to have your shot perfectly framed.
Right.
And we're going to see perfectly framed, as perfect a frame as you could ever have in this film. And so, again, working with Greg Toland and getting these sort of imperfect shots is real skill.
And Toland said, he wanted to work with him. He sat and waited to have a meeting with Wells outside of Wells's office and said, because I want to work with, he's going to show me something I've never seen before.
Right. He wanted to work with someone who didn't know how a movie was supposed to be made.
To see how it could be done in new ways.
And that's what Orson said. He has said all the time. Every time you step on the set, it should be as if it's the first time that you're figuring everything out anew.
How interesting is this now in 2018 with Trump as president? Here's a businessman in Charles Foster Kane who wanted to be president back in 1918. Not a lot of businessmen were necessarily wanting to become president. There were a lot more politicians than they were business. Had they been successful in business? Yes, in certain things, but this is something else.
Well, certainly William Randolph Hearst wanted to be president.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. He was a congressman, and then he ran for mayor. New York. He ran for all this stuff.
A career politician in that way.
Well, he wanted to be, but he kept losing.
Right.
And also with we have a scandal. That's another thing. Looking at it in 2018, that's
which wouldn't be a scandal now. It was a scandal in the 80s and 90s, but now you can do anything. Apparently.
Well.
Here we have the Depression.
Yeah. And again, this is something that happened to Hearst. So there are a lot of things in Citizen Kane that are connected to William Randolph Hearst, and a lot of things that are not, that are really connected to Orson Welles.
And for you millennials listening to us, Hardwick married William Randolph Hearst's granddaughter or great-granddaughter, so there's a connection there that Chris Hardwick from The Nerdist is connected to Hearst in a certain way.
So growing up in San Francisco, there's Hearst Street, there's Hearst buildings, there's, Hearst is a big deal in the San Francisco area. Again, Orson Welles is just 24-year-old, unbelievable performance.
This 50-year-old interpretation of him is amazing.
Well, and that's the thing he does. So the other performance that I can think of that has such a subtle transformation is Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad. Is that it's just like watching step by step how a person changes, and that's over a much shorter space of time. But the 30-year-old version, the 40-year-old version, the 50-year-old version, they're just different people.
The only thing that comes close, in my opinion, because I haven't seen Breaking Bad, is Excalibur. How he goes from the Cage King Arthur, Nigel Terry, to the old King Arthur at the end with.
I think that's great, but I can't. There's no comparison because the movie's no comparison.
It's the closest thing to me.
Yeah, I love Excalibur, but come on. I love the look of the really old Orson with the skull cap, and this shot. Like this is so brilliant because this is clearly stolen footage. Like looking out from a distance, it's spy footage.
Right.
Once
again. We are caught up in the fact that we think we're watching a newsreel. This is not a movie in our minds. It's a newsreel.
Right.
Yet it is a movie, and that's what's so brilliant. Just within this section, Steve, he's proven to be a master filmmaker, having never shot a film in his entire life.
Well, he shot one short when he was but not for real. And then and now we're out of that world and into a complete, and again, we've never seen this in film before. This lit backlit thing with the streams of light and the smoke in the air, and never seeing these characters' faces. And this is, by the way, one where you learn if your TV is well adjusted, because you got to get this one right. Because you want to just almost see these people's faces, but not quite.
Because a lot of the actors that are going to be in the movie are in this playing reporters in the scene. Joseph Cotton's in the scene.
Yep.
The guy who plays the old newspaper editor is in this scene.
I think Alan Ladd is in this scene.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
And what
there's Joseph Cotton on the left.
Yeah. And what we hear is this excitement over, like, we need to produce a different story in this conversation about Rosebud.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is great because, once again, these are news people, right? They're all talking about how they want to break them down, how they want to interpret them. And we see that even nowadays. What's your pitch for this article? What's your pitch? What's your approach to this man that's going to get us the most clicks, the most views, the most subscribers, going to sell the most papers? What is your approach? It never ends. It never ends.
Yeah. And this is, by the way, shot in the RKO screening room. Yeah. Very early on, I think.
Almost looks like Joe DiMaggio, that actor.
He does. And And we haven't had a main character yet. We haven't had a conflict. We don't know and yet we're just been loaded with all this information about this mysterious person.
Right. And I think this shot, Steve, is fantastic because this brings to mind the Julius Caesar thing. If you've seen clips, pictures of it with the lights coming up and, standing in front of the lights. So you seem almost larger, almost more important when you're speaking.
Well, and this is why the people that knock Orson Welles, look, film is a collaborative art. Yeah. So it's not that Greg Toland and Frank Mankiewicz and Robert Wise and all these brilliant people that worked on the film weren't brilliant.
Yeah.
But it's also Orson Welles. You look at Julius Caesar, you look at Voodoo Macbeth, and you could see what's there.
It's the captain of the ship.
All right. We're going to meet Susan Alexander.
Right.
This shot is remarkable.
For you new film kids, look at this shot. Think that it's 1941. Look what him and Greg Toland are able to do with their camera. Through the side.
Yep. Yeah.
And almost into the skylight.
And we're off on our quest to go find out the answer to Rosebud. And I love that we start with a rejection.
Yeah.
We start with, this person's not going to talk to you.
Mm-hmm. And we get this version of Susan Alexander, which is a boozy, just
kind of broken down,
right. And she has this guy who's like essentially her caretaker for this, and we know that this is a woman who maybe doesn't perform she probably cancels shows all the time because of her drinking, but because she still has a name. And in a small part, a lot of performers end up in Vegas who are not as extremely famous like Celine Dion. This is what they're doing. They're trading on their name for as much as they can. For as long as they can.
Honestly, this is the life of most artists, even ones who peak. The peak isn't going to last very long. It's
very true.
I mean, I remember working in a copy store with an assistant manager who had a #1 hit. And he was the drummer for the Beau Brummels.
Oh yeah, the Beau Brummels.
Yeah, and he was
Glad All Over. Is that the Beau Brummels? No,
Laugh.
I think that's right.
Yeah. Anyway, but we digress.
Yeah.
One of the things about our reporter is we're not going to see his face.
No.
I mean, we will a little bit, but not a lot. He's mostly shot from behind.
And this is the actor who ends up in St. Elsewhere, who is the head of the hospital in St. Elsewhere.
Wow.
When I went to see Citizen Kane a couple of years ago at the TCM Film Festival, he introduced the film and talked about working with Orson and all these actors and the Mercury productions that he was on. Because he's very young when he's doing this movie, like he's in his early 20s.
I love this shot, and I love the the waiter. And again, we're going to see something we see all the time in Citizen Kane, which is foreground, midground, background, all in focus. And here we have this beautiful silhouette, and I love when he closes the door for privacy. It's just little details like that.
And if you're looking at this, there is no wall on the other side of that phone booth. Like on that phone booth to our immediate side, there is no wall there, right? So it's almost staged in a stage. It's almost like set up like a stage.
It is, yeah. It is set up for this shot. And this is something, there's things later on with like the phone in the foreground during the attempted suicide where it's like a giant phone, and that's how they made this shot work.
But I like this actor too. He populates this with great character, great smaller parts with these great actors who are very believable in those moments. There's not a wasted moment.
Agreed.
I tell you, mister, he was mentioning this the other day. You never heard of no Rosebud. I love that.
Yeah.
Right? And then you see her just lost in her own, missing him. Oh, and we'll find out later all the terrible things he did in their relationship. And yet she still misses him. She's still haunted by the memory of him.
Well, how often do you meet Charles Foster Kane? I mean, I think every single character is haunted by him.
Yeah, it's true.
He is the most important person that everybody here has met, including we're heading off. And I love the way this is set up to the Thatcher Memorial and the music. Bernard Herrmann, you can't talk enough about how great he is. And the music is dark and forbidding and funny.
Yes.
We're not supposed to take this guy too seriously. And the casting of this actress, and even the fact that she has a male haircut and she's wearing a tie and has a deep voice, it's all off-putting. Like, what is this place we're walking into?
Right.
And one of the other things to point out about this is, and this is why you need to watch this without our commentary track, is that Orson came out of radio, and the sound design in this scene comes from a lot of the things he learned in radio in terms of the sound of the footsteps, the sound of the space. You get this big echoing hall, and we're going to make this unbelievable transition musically and in terms of sound as we go into the first flashback.
Yeah. And William Alland is the actor, by the way, who's playing this reporter who's pursuing everything. And I love that it's so grandiose because that's perfect of Thatcher because he he had to prove how important he was. He always
Right.
thought bigger of himself than he actually was, and so everything is larger and more like just so.
Why would you have
grandiose
this memorial to yourself with this diary that nobody's allowed to read?
Right.
You know, like what is that? That is such a strange person.
Right.
And again, now we're into a different style of filmmaking. We're going to read through this diary, and here we see our first version of young Orson Welles, who I think's happy here.
Yeah.
I think this is
Just
a happy
for a
kid.
second.
Yeah.
Then he throws the snowball, and it's a very harsh cut. Dun. You know.
And now we have, again, this remarkable use of deep space, wide angle lens with everything staying in focus. And to do this, so the basic rules are the longer your lens, like a telephoto lens, you have a shallow depth of field, which means you have very little in focus. The wider the lens, the more is in focus. Yeah. And the more, in order to have a really, really deep focus shot like this, you have to have a ton of light so the aperture could be stopped way down.
Right.
And so they had, like everyone on the crew is wearing sunglasses right now. They have so much light beaming on this set. It is so bright in order to maintain this level of focus all the way to the kid framed in the background.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I always loved, and you know, you don't catch it the first time, the kid playing in the background most of the times, because you're focused on what Thatcher's, a younger version of Thatcher, having this conversation, you know, and this is Agnes Moorehead, who's playing his mom. And by the way, for those of you who don't know Agnes Moorehead, maybe you've seen Bewitched, and she's the crazy grandmom in Bewitched. So like to see all the different parts that she's played and progression and years of career. So many of these actors worked for years longer than Orson, and were more successful, you could argue, in terms of consistent paychecks than Orson.
Her performance is so haunting.
Yeah.
So I need to ask, tell me what you think of Mom and Dad.
I think Dad's a drunk. I think he's actually a physically abusive person. I think what she did, she thought she was doing for the best of her child. But in the long run, it might have been better if he had stayed with her.
Well, here's the thing. I agree that Dad is a drunk.
Yeah.
I think he probably has been physically abusive. Dad's more fun. Charlie likes Dad.
Sure.
Watch how he runs to his dad versus how he runs to Mom.
Well, that's how it is.
I mean, there's like, and this is the thing about their relationship, is I think she's cold and controlling.
Really?
Yeah.
I do not feel that way. I think what she's stealing herself because she's selling her son, and she just has to steal herself or she'd be a blubbering mess. And so to me in this scene, I think she has this like strength of will because she knows what she's doing is best. And if she allows even a window of emotion, she will break down.
I think that's true too. Mm-hmm. I think that's true too. I think and I think we don't get to know. And the other thing that's interesting is the moment where Dad is like, we can't do this. We can't sell the kid off. And then they say, you're going to get $50,000 a year. And he goes, okay, well, whatever's best.
Well, that's why he's a jerk.
Yeah. But there's this moment where you watch Charlie's reaction to Dad's trying to be kind of fun and playful. Yeah. And Charlie like, hey, Dad. And he wants to kind of hug. Oh, nope, don't hug him.
Right.
And he comes over and goes, he goes, yes, mother. Mm-hmm. And you see him having to be proper with Mom. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because, of course, Orson Welles had a father who's a drunk, who died of alcoholism, and a mother who died when he was 9 years old, and his unresolved, as opposed to Hearst, who both of his parents lived till old age. Mm-hmm. You know, this is really Welles.
Well, this is why when we talked about it, when we're talking about Welles, the film is not about Hearst, even though they say it's about Hearst. Obviously it's influenced by Hearst, sure, but this is really Welles' story about himself, and it ends up becoming sadly prophetic by the end in his life and in this movie. But it's a great choice for the actor. The actor looks like, if you've seen pictures of Orson when he's a child, that kid looks exactly like him. And look, she's younger than he is, than the dad is. So at that time, that's how it was, right? Women were getting married at younger ages because they were being married off, and they weren't really allowed to divorce, right? So you get this idea that she's stuck in this marriage with this guy, and this old abusive drunk or whatever this guy is. Look, he swings at Orson or swings at Kane there, and I love the way Thatcher is dressed. He's almost like a Dickensian character from Christmas Carol, right? Almost
it's that era. I mean, this is 1880, 1890.
Yeah.
So and there's so much that just happened in the scene. You see Thatcher's fake niceness. You see Mom protecting him. And now we have our sled.
Snow-covered
train whistle. And then what do we cut to? Where do we go to? Right after this sled, we cut to a sled.
Yeah.
Like that's... And it's just the set design, the looking up at this forbidding Thatcher, and we go Merry Christmas Thatcher right into Happy New Year. Yeah. Like that's one of the most remarkable time transitions in the history of film,
and you will see this throughout the whole movie. Yeah. These time transitions that are revolutionary in how he does them. And Happy New Year.
And we see what is the world that Kane grows up in, it's cold, it's formal, it's professional. Yep. There's no love. Yeah.
But I think he was screwed either way. This is a great point you bring up. I think the dad would have messed him up emotionally and psychologically for years either way. So either way he went, I think Kane was screwed. Either way.
Well, and like I said, I'm not convinced about mom. I don't think mom's a sweetheart.
Okay.
You know?
That's fair.
Yeah. Because it's his mother. Because I think it's his mother's love he wanted throughout the film.
Absolutely, it's not his dad's.
Yeah,
no, absolutely, it's his mom's love. Yeah.
Well, and this is you look at relationships that are codependent, alcoholic. That's a partnership. Like she made choices.
Yeah.
That ended up with him living his whole life without love. You know.
And here we have this sequence which exposes what Charles Foster Kane is and will be throughout his entire life. Or at least until he gets older,
right.
Is this desire to thumb his nose at his upbringing, thumb his nose at the rich, thumb his nose at these people who he grew to hate because they domineered his life and raised him this way.
Yeah.
And so this is his way of getting back at them.
And it's also, in terms of montage filmmaking, this is just, every shot is perfectly framed. And there he is. Ugh. One of the great reveals, because we've seen this old guy.
Yep.
We've never seen that guy.
And he's a good-looking son of a bitch, man. I at this age, he's a good-looking son of a bitch.
Well,
the smirk, the smile, the voice, the cheeks, everything.
The confidence, the charisma. Yeah. Like you can see, this is why you can see that this is why the world was drawn to Orson Welles. Mm-hmm. You can see this like, oh my God, I'd follow this guy anywhere.
He's dashing.
Yeah.
The shirt's open. He's astride his world. Yeah. Even everyone is standing talking to him. He's sitting comfortably, the pipe in his mouth, all of it. It's just brilliant, the strength.
Well, and this is one of the things we'll see throughout Citizen Kane and throughout a lot of Orson Welles' film is the perfectly framed shot and he stages humans moving around and human faces, little camera move to a new shot. It's always just perfectly done.
Right.
And the thing about this guy, I'd vote for this guy.
Sure.
This young Charles Foster Kane, because you believe him.
Yeah.
And yet, even within this whole thing, he's corrupting himself.
We
You know what I mean?
Sure. We don't see it right now.
You do a little bit.
Really? You see corruption here?
Is this, you provide the poems, I'll provide
that's
the war?
Fair. That's fair. He is. Yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. He's almost like a National Enquirer or a Harvey Levin TMZ guy, fabricating news or creating news so that he can sell newspapers and become successful. But here is this defiance that we will see numerous times towards Thatcher throughout the whole film until, and this is the irony and the tragedy, he becomes Thatcher himself by the end, in my opinion, with how he deals with Susan, with how he deals with
worse,
worse, because he knows better.
Yeah.
Whereas Thatcher is a slave to what he is. Wells or Kane knows better and still acts.
And is more of a genius and more powerful and more brilliant.
And more insecure.
And more insecure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this idea of they need a wealthy person who can fight, who understands the other side to fight for we're like, yes.
Yeah.
That's Robin Hood,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also a self-importance in that's dangerous too.
Exactly.
And Kennedy, like Jack Kennedy, was very much the same thing, right? He was a rich guy who thought he could fight, who wanted to fight for the lesser.
Yeah.
But he had his own flaws as well as a person and in his character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, the smirk. The smirk
is everything, right?
Yeah. And now again, we're going to jump way ahead.
60 years.
And here again, we have these wide angle lens where you have the size of Bernstein's head in the foreground.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to really small Kane in the background by the end of this shot, revealing Thatcher. I mean, this is just beautifully, beautifully done.
Well, and it's a great cut from these vibrant young men going at each other to these old, decrepit, having done this for a long time, men, right? The battle is out of them. They're just acquiescing to 1929 and the Depression, and
And here's that foreground, midground, background, with Orson still in focus way back there, and we see that incredible performance of him, the stiffness, the solidity. It feels
size.
Yeah.
And the columns behind him, almost Roman-like, these columns behind him that convey strength and power.
Yeah.
Once again, whatever position he is in, they are in a submissive position, whether they're standing or sitting, right? Previously, they're all standing around his desk, and he's sitting there lighting a cigar or a pipe like it's no big deal. Here, they're all sitting, and they're hunched over, but he is astride them. Again, he is above them.
And yet, this is one of his low points.
Yes.
This is where he's lost everything. He's not lost everything. He's going to get an allowance. He's just signed up. And we get one of these moments, which is, I always choked on the silver spoon. And then he says, if I hadn't been born very rich, I think I could have become a really great man.
And he says, don't you think you did all right? Oh, don't you think you are, or something like that?
I think I did all right under the circumstances.
Yeah, but it's the look he gives him, the withering look he gives him before he says that line that's so powerful here.
Well, and it's what would you have liked to become? Mm-hmm. Everything you hate.
Everything you hate.
There's so much going on in this.
Yeah, man.
And I think it is really interesting that maybe if he had been brought up differently, he could have been the great man he wanted to be.
Maybe.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah. But he does sneak looks at Thatcher before he says this. But he's talking to Bernstein.
Well, he's always playing to Bernstein.
Of course.
Bernstein's his audience.
That's his audience, right?
It's his audience. It's a fan.
It's what people accused Sinatra of when he married Mia Farrow. I think it was Dean or Sam, he married his audience.
Yeah.
And that's, when you're old, you play to your audience, man. You need that attention when you're used to getting it. So we have that moment there where he says, and then we go back to Land, of course, in the library reading.
And I love how quickly we get out of this.
Yeah.
And
I love the security guards. Did I find what you're looking for? And like, I just love.
I really wonder how many women were ever in a suit and tie at this time, 1941. I think this was a complete choice for this. Mm-hmm. And we're going to have a great Bernard Herrmann. Bernard Herrmann. Edward Herrmann is a totally different person.
He's an
Sting, like a comic Sting at the end of this music.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they're comical people.
Yeah.
Self-important, grandiose. Look at that huge portrait of himself. Ridiculous. Compared to the small portrait that Kane, that Bernstein has.
Well, and he has a picture of Kane.
Yes.
He doesn't have a picture of himself.
Of course not. Because he loves Kane so much.
Yeah.
By the way, this is one of my favorite scenes, top 3 favorite scenes in the movie. Because of the conversation they have about being old. And especially as I get older, I understand Bernstein more and more as I get older.
Well, I knew when I first saw this movie at 17 or 18 that what Everett Sloane says about you'd be surprised the things you remember, that was the truth.
Yeah.
Even though these are all young men. Orson's a young guy. I mean, Mankiewicz is a little bit older. He's in
not that much.
40s, 50s, I think, when he wrote this.
But he's not in the film. He's just writing it. But
yeah.
These people portraying are amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And look at the beautiful reflection in the desk. And you see the rain in the reflection of the desk. Like little details of this.
It's very clean, as Bernstein would have it. Very organized, very clean. And also what's great about Bernstein is the way he speaks with affection for everyone. Mm-hmm. And even Thatcher, there's a little bit of anger, but he doesn't hate Thatcher. But he calls Susan Alexander Susie.
Yeah.
He has a care, And
he knows who Kane was.
Right.
But he still loves him. He's not like a sycophant in the sense that he ignores all of the bad things.
No.
He sees them.
Yeah. He's a fan. He's legitimately a fan, and he understands the man, and he knows his flaws, but doesn't hate him for his flaws. Right. Because in a way, he becomes grander by being part of his world.
Well, what's interesting too is this, because we're all in these flashbacks, and this flashback sequence with Bernstein is the most joyful of the film.
Yeah,
it's really fun
because that's how he would seize him.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's also the first part of his life. We haven't gotten into the stuff where it gets really pretty brutal.
But even though he's old, I love the way he moves. Bernstein does. He's still Bernstein in his movements.
Yeah.
Oh, and I love this is one of my favorite lines. It's no secret to be rich if all you want to be is, or it's no secret to make a lot of money if all you want to do is to make a lot of money.
That's been one of the things in my life. I mean, and I think it is unbelievably true.
Yep. We see this with the reality TV stars make all that money. Who cares? They have little value.
Well, and as we talked about lots of times, money doesn't buy happiness. Mm-hmm. It doesn't.
I'll try it out one time.
Yeah. There's also that great story. There's also the great story of the Staten Island ferry.
Right.
And seeing the girl, and she wore a white dress, and I only saw her for 1 second. But a day hasn't gone by that I haven't thought about that.
When I was younger, I used to have those moments, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I still have them from when I was younger.
Right.
You know what I mean? I still remember moments like that.
Yeah.
And hear the joy in the music.
It's so great. It's whimsical.
Yeah.
It's almost circus-like, you know?
And this is, true from Hearst's life. He opened up, he took this over the San Francisco Examiner when he was a very young man, asked for it from his parents, and just pretty much totally transformed the paper.
Right. And this is, once again, here's someone who is like trying to undercut Kane a little bit with his comment. He's just a furniture mover.
Right.
And a guy says, you paid for opinions or for hauling. So we see that it lays the groundwork that Everett will, or that Bernstein will.
I love Joseph Cotton switching to the other side of the pole because it's bad luck. One of the other inventions in this film was roofs in sets, ceilings.
Oh.
Because normally you lit from above.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these ceilings are muslin. They're actually fabric, so you could get some light through them. And they had to find ways to light from the sides because Orson wanted all these low angle shots. So therefore you had to have ceilings.
And this is Erskine Sanford, who I absolutely love as the editor of the paper. He's so lost.
And this is where you see these guys are great comedy. I mean, this is a great comedy duo.
Yes.
And the way they're messing with him and the repetitions and the confusion and the way the language goes is really funny, a funny bit.
Yeah. But it also shows, once again, transition. Right,
Yeah.
because he is an old school newspaper man, and this is a new way, a new approach,
and that's funny too.
Yes, physical gags.
It's funny the choice of Bernstein's Jewishness is something it's not overplayed. It comes up a little bit. He comes from a clearly different culture from everybody else. He is, as you said, the most loyal person to Kane. It's very interestingly done.
Yeah.
And again, the comedy continues.
Yeah. And later when the whole thing with Emily and, Emily's or Mr. Bernstein is bound to paying a visit to the nursery every once in a while.
Yeah.
You see it there, this kind of underground, not overt racism towards Jewish people. Yeah. Yeah, Bernstein is one of my favorite characters in the whole damn movie.
Yeah.
And it's because of his consistency and his devotion that makes him so lovable.
What's really funny, too, is that we really love watching Kane transform the paper. It's really joyful. He says, the newspaper goes 24 hours. You make the headline bigger. It makes the news bigger. All those, him sending what we're going to see right now, where he's going to send the guy down to interview say he comes from the central office and all this stuff. And all of these things are bad.
Yeah.
They're all terrible.
Well, they lead to people losing their jobs, and they lead to and it's corruption of the news industry.
This is what, if you follow this is all things Hearst did. You follow Hearst, it's like that's yellow journalism, and that leads us right down to the today and the way the news is today. This is the beginning.
Gossip rags. Well, and this is something it was interesting to watch him eat, because Orson Welles was known for eating 4 or 5 dinners at a sitting. He was that voracious and hungry of a man that he would eat multiple steak dinners before shows or before directing play. He just was known for this, which is why he became so large as he got older, because the appetite never left.
Yeah. Well, he's gluttonous and
yes, true.
And he's a sensualist in every way. I mean, with women, with experiences, with that's just who he was.
Look at him, man. That's a good looking man, dude.
Yeah.
And my best day, I never looked that good.
I'm just trying to look as good as Erskine Sanford.
Just want someone to say something big. It's that reaction out of you. But you're right. This is the yellow journalism. He's encouraging this kind of unscrupulous journalism.
Well, and creating controversy and scandal to sell the paper. Yeah. And this is, you look at,
we see
are your children
Twitter.
Safe?
Yeah.
Check, watch it 11. That's what this is.
Right.
And it makes us more afraid. It makes us,
We see it on Twitter now. People post headlines about things and, inside source at Disney says this, or inside source at Marvel says this, and it's to get reactions.
So, his declaration.
Oh, yeah.
It's a fascinating moment.
Well, it's the hubris of youth, idealism.
And ego.
Yeah.
I mean, this is,
very much so.
Joseph Cotton's line of, that's the second sentence you started with I. That is a profound statement about Charles Foster Kane.
Which will come to bear when he loses and they have that conversation in the office, in the after he's lost the election. You want them to love you so much, you'll be surprised what happens. when they think it's a right and not a privilege.
I love declarations of principles, by the way, but they're hard to. But it's like Google's don't do evil, or don't be evil, and then Google gets put in all these positions. Well, what does that mean? Right. And eventually they kind of drop it.
Yeah,
because it's hard to maintain.
It's subjective.
Well, and it's okay. You want to be in China, so what do you do? And he's saying, I'm going to be this tireless fighter but are you?
Well, that's the thing. That's why I mean it's the idealism of youth. You think at 20, 25, you know how the world would be better if you did this and if you did that. But you don't know the actual machinations of what you're wanting to do and the different levels of people and resistance that you're going to confront and the compromises you're going to have to make. That's why this idealism with politicians is unrealistic. It's quicksand.
Well, and you don't see your own crap,
Right.
Kane goes, oh yeah, thinks he's really principled. While in the meantime, he's making up news stories and doing all, starting a war in Cuba. He's doing all sorts of crazy stuff.
Yeah. Who is he with this pursuit of yellow journalism to all of a sudden become this noble knight? And it's ridiculous.
Don't you know who? He's Charles Foster Kane.
That's right. Because in his mind, he's actually not being corrupt. That smirk hides a lot.
Well, it's funny too that later on, I think I did pretty well under the circumstances. Smirk.
Yeah,
I think he knows. It's so interesting. Like in the scenes with, he's the smartest guy in the room at all times. And I think when he's getting torn into by Joseph Cotten later in the film, he knows he's wrong.
Right. Of course he is. Of course he does.
But he's still going to do it.
Right. Because the pride. By the way, that last cut, the smiling cut between them is I hate that shot in the movie. I wish they would cut. If I could cut anything out of Citizen Kane, it would be that stupid smile he has looking back at Joseph Cotten, because it's so unbelievable.
Yeah,
it's not authentic.
By the way, so two things. When Hearst, we got to talk about this transition. Yeah. It is brilliant, and this is something we've seen lots of times after, but I've never seen this before. Pushing in on these guys and taking the picture. And it makes no sense. Why are they all in the 6 years later? They're in the same suits as they were before. Makes no sense. But
you get the point.
But we get the point. Yeah. And now we're going to get a great party.
Yeah.
My guess is partying with Orson Welles was a lot more fun than partying with William Randolph Hearst.
Probably.
I know it. But William Randolph Hearst didn't like drinking.
But you also did. Oh, okay. There we go. Well, but you also had to deal with Welles's mercurial temper, which was legendary.
Well, when he was telling that guy to redo the paper, the front page again, I think, that's what working with Orson Welles was.
Probably, yeah.
Stay up all night again.
Yeah. We see here Bernstein goading him and kind of like kissing his butt a little bit by being like, you got to get all those things and you got to get all these things. He's playing into Welles's ego,
right?
Or Kane's ego rather, and it's
in a fun way.
Yes, in an absolutely fun way.
Yeah.
The ice sculpture is great, right? The ice sculptures are fantastic.
It's funny being around when you're around people. I don't know that I've ever been around anyone at the level of Orson Welles, but people who are the sun in the room.
Yeah.
Where everybody orbits around them. And what's interesting with him, and I've seen this from a distance with movie stars and people, is people comfortable being in that position.
Yeah.
I am the most important person here. Everyone should focus on me. Yeah. I mean, the guy... Did he commission this song to be written about him, by the way?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
He knows all the words.
Yeah, good point.
He might have written it.
Sure.
But
here's his hubris again, right?
And, again, the Spanish-American War thing, the guy started a war for and that's true of Hearst.
Yep.
For no particular reason,
Other than to sell papers.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, and it's a great point you bring up about the song. Because he's all playful and he's great with them because he got what he wanted. He's got this rich kid. He bought the people he wanted. He got ahead and he's all playful with them. But he has a song written for him, and that is the first glimpse we have into his dangerous hubris, his dangerous ego, this need to have it constantly stroked. Why? Because he doesn't have the love of his mother. It is constant throughout the whole movie how much he needs to get his butt kissed. Because he never got that love from his mom. So the whole is so large. It cannot be filled.
Well, and the thing too, Kane, and this is certainly true of Hurst, is, that expression, you're born on third base and think you hit a triple.
Yeah.
It's like the guy owned the paper. He didn't have to work to get the paper.
Right.
And then he bought the people he used money losing $1 million a year to build this paper. It's like, now, is Charles Foster Kane a genius? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But is he a self-made man? No way.
No.
Where would he have gotten if he didn't have all this money?
It's amazing when daddy gives you $11 million and you think you've really done something.
Yeah. Amazing. I love, by the way, Joseph Cotton's performance as he just sort of enthusiastically, strangely sings this song.
Well, I think he's restrained. I think he knows what's happening. So, which is why I don't think he dials into the song as fervently as Bernstein does. Because he's having his own internal dialogue about what his friend, who he knows deeply, is doing. He's watching his friend progress into this other person. And here in this exchange he has with Bernstein coming up is what he says. It could be that here we go.
Yeah. Well, and then they fulfill their roles, which is like Cotton is going, are these people aren't they as much to our principles as they were to the Chronicles principles? Right. And Bernstein's like, yeah, of course, everybody's working for a paycheck. Yep. That's what they do.
Right.
Because Bernstein's essentially practical. Cotton is a failed idealist.
And that's the thing. But Cotton is also worried about his friend's emotional progression and who he's going to become, because he says it could be that these guys will change him, not him changing these guys. And that's what he worries about, because he loves him. He worries about what the end result is going to be, because he's seen his friend and his weaknesses and what he could possibly become if influenced in the wrong way. By the way, once again, we see the background, foreground, and what you were pointing out, we see Wells dancing in the reflection of the mirror. How fantastic is that, Steve?
Yeah.
It's just so great.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny, this idea of, did they change him? I don't think they change him. I think Kane is Kane. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's sort of the natural progression of where he's going.
Probably, yeah.
So here we are back in the newspaper office, now filled with statues. And of course, this comes from William Randolph Hearst too, who collected all sorts of weird stuff from all over Europe. If you go to San Simeon, it is ridiculous, some of the stuff.
Michael Jackson was like this too. When you have a lot of money, you can just buy whatever you want, walk into places and buy whatever you want. It must be insane.
This is where I go, people have too much money.
Yeah, right. I can buy a candy bar. Yeah. That's a luxury. And now these people are buying statues. Yeah.
I love the Leland's version of himself. Am I a school marm?
Yeah.
All that stuff. And Bernstein's response is that he feels his job is to be Kane when he's not there. Right. I'm not going to tell you any different than he did.
He said, if you think I was going to say anything different, you're wrong. Right, exactly. But now we have this announcement, right? That he's married the president's niece.
Not yet. Not yet.
Okay.
Because he's got to show up.
Right.
Yeah, he's going to show up.
That's right, because the cable comes in.
Yes, it's that we know that he's getting a diamond. This shot is amazing, by the way. The framing of this and the positioning of everybody.
He does such a good job of using faces coming into the half into the frame,
and the choice of the white suit, and the
purity,
mustache,
of course, and the mustache, right?
Yeah, and his nervousness and awkwardness. It kind of mirrors the earlier scene with Erskine Stanford and the sort of movement and
He's almost got a Gable-ish vibe to him, or a Gable-ish vibe to him,
And this is one area where he's burying the lead. He's like, let's keep this thing quiet, which is not like him. It's a little out of character.
No.
And how do you think he feels about Emily, about his first wife?
Well, I don't think he has an ability to love or care for anybody. It's not. He's never learned how to do it. Therefore, he has no concept of it. Even the way he takes that thing and runs off, he does not respect that they did this for him and did this beautiful thing for him. He doesn't take a moment to say thank you or to say speech that is really encouraging to them. He doesn't want to do it. But I think with Emily, it is the next logical step for him in his mind. That's closer to the halls of power.
I agree with everything you said, but he also does seem genuinely awkward and nervous for the only time in the film. Mm-hmm. And so there's what he's experiencing, something that's different, I think.
Well, because he's still a 10-year-old kid raised in a poverty-stricken thing. So he doesn't have, he wasn't raised to be amongst this world and generations and decades.
But from 10 until 20,
not
he
from
was.
Birth. It matters from birth.
Maybe.
Man. I think it does.
You think it's a class thing?
Absolutely.
I think
that's why he's unsettled and weird. This is a president's niece. He's shooting above his league.
Oh, and I think it's an intimacy thing. I think that he isn't prepared he doesn't know what this is to be going into somewhere someone's going to be inside.
Yeah, but we never see a softness from Emily ever.
No.
Right. So
no, we do. We do. At the beginning of the breakfast scene.
Oh yeah, sure. Softness. They have a little bit of softness. You're right. That's right. Yeah. But then it's quickly cold.
Yeah. It's funny as we leave that we've left joyfulness now, you know, and the fact that we come back to the room and it's nighttime now.
It's darker.
It's dark. Yeah. And there's this idea, this discussion of this understanding of growing old.
Yeah.
From this movie from this 24-year-old kid that I think is so profound. You know, nothing particularly wrong with him, just old age. It's the one disease you're not looking forward to being cured of, whatever that is. I mean, that's some deep stuff we're getting into.
Right. And it slowly pulls out. The camera slowly pulls out.
Yeah.
You know, as this conversation becomes a little bit softer, you know. Because,
well, and the thing too is that he keeps saying you should talk to Leland.
Right.
When was the last time Bernstein talked to Leland?
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Right. Well, without the connective tissue of Kane, why would they?
Yeah.
Sometimes that's the way it goes. Sometimes
you
have that third friend that connects the two. And once that third friend is removed, sometimes you're almost awkward in interaction without that third friend in the room.
That is totally true. Yeah. Even if you like that person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so let's go find Mr. Leland, you know? And under the bridge, you know, like this is not a nice place he's in.
Well, it's very reminiscent of the opening shot, the going up the fence. You know, we have him up in his tower.
Yeah.
Because he does think he's above.
I love Joe Cotton's old man acting.
It's very cool. The mustache is perfect.
And the glasses and the visor.
The visor is great.
Yeah.
He's still, because he comes from class. He comes from money.
Right.
So therefore, his way of growing old is not going to be Kane's way of growing old. It's just different. He's more settled.
Now that you say that, I think I'm coming to your way of thinking, because Kane is new money.
Yeah, Kane is new money.
That's how he behaves. All the purchasing, the grandstanding,
it's all to show off.
It's all to show off.
Because he's not used to having it.
Yeah.
Whereas Cotton never did. He had money. He came from money. All those things. He didn't need to because it's already ingrained. He knows he could do it if he wanted to.
And he has no money. You know, that's what's so fascinating, because his is the opposite story. It's this old wealthy family, and then the father kills himself, and you find out there's no money there.
Right.
You know,
debts.
Debt, nothing but debts.
But the way he's raised is old.
Yeah. And by the way, Leland has spent 50 years thinking about Kane. Like, he has been waiting for someone to come along and ask him these questions, and because he's got it worked. And really, more than anybody else, I think he kind of has his finger on who this guy was.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
He's the only one who, in my opinion, who interprets Kane correctly.
Yeah. As much as you can.
As much as you can. Right. Exactly. But I think that's what's great about the film, Steve, is all of us, depending on how we think or our upbringing, can connect to one person in this film and by their story of Kane more powerfully within our. So it rings more powerfully. For me, Cotton's. For some people, it's Bernstein's. For some people, it's Susan's. For some people, it's Thatcher's. It's for me, it's Cotton's.
I'm probably too with Cotton. I love Bernstein. I want to talk about this dissolve that's coming up because it's fascinating. So the way they do it, they have this extremely slow dissolve, and it's a superimposition. And what they do is you make sure that the side of the screen you're going to dissolve into is really dark, so that as you're doing the dissolve, that will come up first.
Okay.
And the light parts will fade out last. So as we're going into it, I think pretty soon, we'll see that the breakfast appear in the background in the dark area, and Cotton will stay there talking even longer. It's really, really beautiful.
But I think it's,
So here it goes. Yeah. See? And so Cotton stays there because he's well lit, and the other side comes in earlier. And you have to plan that in advance.
That's amazing. Well, I think it's important too to note that Cotton says, "Oh, I knew Emily. She was in dancing school." So that's the thing. He's not intimidated by Emily because he knew her since she was a child.
Of course.
But Wells would be, or Kane would be, falling all over himself.
This sequence is one of the most remarkable in film. And everything from the costuming, the hair, the makeup, what they're eating, and we see the progression of this relationship in about 2 minutes.
Yes, it's one of the most effective portrayals of the end of a relationship you've ever, from the beginning to an end of a relationship you've ever seen. And look the way she's lit. She's very brightly lit, she's glowing almost. They're both glowing.
And look at his hair and the mustache, and he's just suave and sexy
and she's sexy too. Like the dress is just above the breast line. You can see just the beginning of the breast, so it's very sexy to wear.
And you can feel the tension.
Yeah.
And now
she becomes more covered up.
Changed a little bit.
Yep.
I love this. Is one of my favorite Orson outfits. Oh God. The smoking jacket and the pipe.
I want to do that once, just once.
You look good. I think you could. I can pull that off.
Thank you.
And we see the little progression in their relationship. and the darkness of it coming in.
But clothes-wise, too, she becomes more and more covered up.
Yep.
She covers herself up more from him. He becomes more and more open and loose with his clothes. Yep. It's the swagger.
And his politics are starting to bother her.
Yep.
The amount of time he works is starting to bother her. Yeah. The Bernstein and the toy, that's something, her anti-Semitism is coming in. And this is one area where I like Kane, Kane standing up to her is just great.
Look at how covered up she is now. Like, it's fully covered.
And that bow is, like, the clothes are more ridiculous.
Right.
And now he's just full a businessman.
Mm-hmm.
This is where he defends Bernstein.
Yeah.
And now that's that line, by the way, people will think what I tell them to think. Mm-hmm. Ooh. And now what newspaper is she reading? The Chronicle.
Right.
As we sit in silence, he reads the Examiner, and the camera slowly pulls back out, and we go back to the same process dissolve back to Leland.
So you imagine they've been married for at least 10 years?
10, 15 years, yeah.
To see the progression.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we go dissolve back into him.
Back to him.
Great, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we learned so much about their relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's funny is we're with Orson, for the Bernstein thing. But when she says people will think what I tell them to think, it's like, wait a minute. That's the first really dark moment I think you see from him.
That's a great point.
Where you go like, hold on. Yeah. I'm not comfortable with that.
Right.
It's
the idealism turned wrong.
Well, and this is the great mistake that Hearst made, is Hearst thought, because he was a newspaper man, he could be president because he could create public opinion.
Yeah, he could influence, yeah.
But he was wrong.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Well, and he destroyed many careers. And many people were beholden to him, and he had people on his payroll who did his bidding.
Well, what's interesting, and you've seen this particularly, I would say, with the Republican Party, is that you can create anger, but you can't control it.
Right.
Well,
we've seen that in numerous protests now.
So we're about to meet Susan Alexander.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated by who this Charles Foster Kane is at this moment.
Interesting.
Because where he was going, we find out that he was going to look through his mother's things that had been sitting through in a warehouse.
Right.
But
this is a tragic moment. He was going to possibly be redeemed. He was going to look through his mother's things. He was going to maybe come to terms with this stuff. Maybe he becomes a changed person. But instead, he meets Susan, has this interaction with Susan, instead of going to look through his mother's things, he instead swings back to having his ego stroked, having this hole filled by a young woman that he could manipulate, whose self-esteem and self-worth are maybe even lower than his, so that he could twist her to be something that he could use to kiss his own ass with. And that's the tragedy of Kane, is throughout this movie there are moments where he can change or become better, and he doesn't.
It's funny, I never thought about it that way. Like that I never saw him going to look through his mother's things as a chance for redemption.
Why wouldn't it be? It's the one thing he doesn't have.
Yeah, but you don't get love from your mom by looking through her stuff.
But if there's a diary that says, I miss my son, I think of my son, I spend my whole time thinking of my son. There's maybe something. I
mean, we know the one thing that is there.
The sled.
Is the sled.
Right.
Because the thing is to me, looking at the stuff doesn't give you a childhood. You know what I mean?
You don't look at things and remember your mom or your dad.
Oh, of course I do.
Feel affection, feel love, and feel...
Sure, but it doesn't give him back the 15 years of his life that... You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to... I'm not saying that he probably would have been better off not getting Splash and going to do that rather than being Susan Alexander. Right. Definitely.
Right.
But I don't know that there would be any... I don't know. Who knows? I never thought of it that way.
Well, I always think that there was a possibility for redemption, and he chose not to. And I think because you look through that stuff, and maybe that inspires him to become a better person. Maybe that inspires him to come to terms with things. But instead, he goes to the ego stroke, which is Susan.
Well, and he has, as we see in this scene, this ability to charm. Mm-hmm. Like, if you got the full brightness of Orson Welles' charisma poured at you, you're going to do? You're going to do whatever he wants.
And we also have to remember he's coming out of this relationship with Emily. He's unloved. Right by his own wife, and I don't know what his relationship with his child. That's one of the negatives about Kane, I think, is that we never get to see this relationship with his child until his child is killed. We have just one scene when he's doing the political stuff, but there's no real great scenes establishing his connection with his child either, so we could see how he would be as a father.
Well, it's interesting, between Emily and then between Thatcher, it seems like that kid's life was pretty formal. Yeah. You know what I mean? The way Thatcher raised Wells and the way he's raising his kid.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't seem like it's a lot of fun.
Right.
From what little we've seen, you know? And again, look at Orson Welles' gaze into her. He is giving her one, she probably never felt attention like this in her life.
Right.
And what's Susan Alexander is the greatest tragedy in this movie.
Oh, absolutely.
And it is so painful what he does to her. And so stupid. You know what I mean? Like, this is where, you know, he gives up on, when he gives up on politics, he goes, now my project's going to be this woman.
Yep.
And fighting the entire world to turn her into something that makes her miserable.
She makes her the battlefield for his anger at the world.
Yeah.
And her feelings, her emotions, her humanness matters nothing to him until she finally, in an act of rebellion, tries to kill herself, to remove herself from the pain.
Well, and even then, I don't think it.
But he turns her into a spite. Like, this is a vibrant, funny, yes, insecure, but young woman, and he turns her into this boozy, depressed, suicidal songstress, for lack of a better term.
Well, and it's, you know, it goes back to this love on my terms thing that we're going to hear a lot. We're going to hear in the film is that he wants to force the world to do things the way he wants them to do it. He wants to force her to become what he wants her. Well, and it's funny too, because we also have the mother thing here.
Yeah.
Because what did her mother want her to be? Her mother wanted to be a great opera singer.
Yeah.
And he's like, this is why I go to, like, that relationship with his own mom is pretty weird. Like, his desire, I think he feels that she rejected him and turned him away and is desperate to have mom's love. And so now he's going to turn this other woman into the thing that her mother wanted her to be in order to somehow get his own mother to love him on some level. I mean, it's some weird.
Well, and that's why I think his attempts at redemption are powerfully motivated. They're ham-handed at times.
No.
Everything else he does is with gusto and purpose and drive. But this idea to confront the loss of his mother or the rejection by his mother is never spoken about. He never speaks about it with anyone until even maybe the end. And so how deep was that within him? You know, that's left for us to devise as we watch the film.
Well, and the intensity with which he's listening to her sing. And it's funny, apparently Dorothy Common-Gore is a pretty good singer.
Yes, of course.
And they made her sing out of her range and these uncomfortable things.
Well, like Gene Hagen in Singing in the Rain. She can actually sing really well. Yeah.
Right. Now we're beginning the political campaign. And I love that they use the same speech, by the way. They go right in from Leland giving the speech to Kane doing it.
This is my favorite scene of the movie. Oh, God. The power, dude. Just the look. Do you know what I'm saying? That poster, the cheek, the chin jabbed in. It's, you know.
Yeah, and the shots are amazing and powerful.
Yeah.
Well, and this idea, I made no campaign promises. Like the guy claims to be the fighter for the people, but is he?
But once again, do we have shades of Trump here? Because he's like, I'm not a political. I'm not. I didn't make because I didn't have any chances. I didn't make any campaign promise. He's essentially saying, I'm one of you. I'm not a career politician. I'm just a regular guy trying to do what's best for the little guy. You know.
Yeah,
but it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit.
I don't know. I don't know if it's all bullshit, but there's a lot of bullshit in here.
You love Kane a lot, don't you?
Well, no. I mean, I think here's the thing: is that did his paper do things to fight for the masses? Yes, they did.
Yeah, sure. The copper and all that stuff. And
does Kane believe in those causes to some degree?
Sure.
I think he does. But I think they're all come secondary to his idolatry of himself.
Right. Yes.
You know what I mean?
But he does those things from the idolatry of himself.
Yeah.
Because he needs to feel like he's important. He matters.
Absolutely.
He does these. So therefore he goes and attacks these things so he can be lauded. Once again, filling that hole that cannot be filled.
I mean, it's why I talked about on the podcast, I think before, reading all those Lyndon Johnson books, and he's fascinating. And he's basically the same thing, the greatest political operator of all time, and did genuinely believe in certain things. But the number one thing he believed in was Lyndon Johnson.
Right.
You know,
I dated a girl years ago who was Chuck Robb's I think I talked about this too on the same thing. And she had a picture of Lyndon Johnson like towering over a senator as he convinces that senator to vote a certain way.
Probably with his finger right in his chest.
And he's like literally craning over the guys. And she said that to me is one of my favorite pictures and encapsulates Lyndon Johnson.
Yep. And this is like the moment. This is the peak. This is the height for Kane.
Yep.
And it's all about to come crashing down. And here we have the great Ray Collins, who I grew up with watching on Perry Mason.
Right.
And he's also one of the Mercury Theater players. And he is one of those supporting actors with unbelievable range. And he is fantastic in this for the small part that he's in. And what is about to happen, he has made happen, and what he has done with Emily in this moment on the night before the election is just crazy.
So you say there's genuine affection. I think it's the same kid who plays his son that plays him when he's younger.
Really?
It certainly looks like him.
They look similar. He looks a little chubbier.
All right, Steve.
I'm just saying.
Don't fat shame the child, for God's sake.
He's dead. Maybe not. He could be around.
But she's beautiful in this scene, man.
Sure.
She's vibrant and gold. Like she's actually very sexy in a certain way.
Yeah.
And so, but she had she has this the whole time. She knows what she's going to do the whole time.
Right. Well, and she expects, and what everyone expects is going to happen is he's going to drop out of the race, and he's not going to do that.
But once again, this is new money versus old money. For her, being a president, she's already a president's niece. She doesn't care about it. But for him, it is the drive to be proven once again that he's important.
Well, and that no one's going to tell him what to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And she's like, we have to save shame to the family name. And he's like, no, I'm going to do what I want to do. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
But it's his hubris. Again, it's his idolatry, right? He thinks he can override this situation, control the situation.
I love this moment when the woman opens the door and says, "Hello, Mr. Kane." Or "Come right in, Mr. Kane." That's the confirmation. Yeah. That is okay, this is true.
Yeah.
I love the casting of Ray Collins. He's very much based on I forget which governor it is of New York. Ran for president, Al Smith. Very much based on Al Smith, which is a lower to middle class upbringing. Definitely tied in with some extremely popular Democratic candidate, but maybe somewhat corrupt on some levels. And now we have this.
LaGuardia.
Yeah.
Huey. What his name is down in Tennessee or down in South. Huey Long.
Huey Long.
Yeah.
And I love Ray Collins in the shadows.
Yeah. He's in the shadows because he has information, right? She's in the light.
Yeah. And now Kane's going to try to intimidate, try to fight back, because he doesn't want to be told what to do.
And this is essentially a mob boss
that
he's trying to intimidate. Right. And then she has the note and, it's also tawdry and cheap for a guy. So apparently the marriage isn't over. He's been cheating on her with Susan the whole time.
Well, we don't, at what?
Well, not the whole time of the marriage. But
when during the breakfast sequence did he meet Dorothy Commingore?
That's a good question.
We don't exactly know. It seems to me it's near the end.
Yeah,
just
probably.
based on how old he looks.
Yeah.
You
probably as soon as you started reading the Chronicle.
Right. And we don't know how long after this Emily and the son die in the car accident.
Right.
It's some amount of time, but we don't know how long. Yeah. And of course the big thing that Orson Welles and everyone has said that Orson Welles does regret is that the treatment of Susan Alexander is really cruel to Marion Davies, which is her mistress, who, from what everyone says, is a lovely, amazing, fun, great, cool person.
Yep.
And, in a lot of ways, what if anybody remembers William Randolph Hearst, they're actually remembering Citizen Kane,
right?
Today, and that's sort of sad,
right? And the Rosebud thing is a reference to Marion Davies' private parts.
Yes,
so
that's not cool.
But again, that's the hubris of a 24-year-old.
Yeah,
right. Of course, he regrets it when he gets older, just like Kane regrets a lot of shit he did when he was younger. Right. That's the thing,
Well, and particularly if you hadn't done Rosebud, maybe. But who knows? This is
maybe Luella Parsons isn't sicked on him. Maybe they don't try to destroy the movie.
Yeah.
That's the thing people need to understand. If you do your history of Kane, and we'll probably talk about it when we do the movie, but like this movie almost was destroyed before it was ever released. And that's insane to think about, considering it has influenced so many filmmakers since it came out in 1941.
Right. And now we got to the choice. And we have, and again, we have perfect framing of Kane in the background.
Now he's in the shadows.
Yeah.
Right.
And everyone turning to him.
Right.
And everyone's telling him, his enemy, his wife, his mistress are, you got to back down.
Once again, here's a moment where he can make the right decision, seek redemption, take the hit, swallow his pride, learn.
Right.
But he will not do it.
Well, because he doesn't, on a fundamental level, care about anyone but himself. Mm-hmm. He cares about people so that they love him.
Right.
You know.
Well, I don't know if it's about it. It's an interesting point you bring up. If he cared about himself, he'd do the right thing to preserve his legacy. I think he doesn't care about himself. I think his insecurity and his self-worth, I think all of it is so that he doesn't care. Because just like we talked about earlier, fools rush in and being more cautious. If he was more cautious, he would take the hit. He would let go of Jim Geddes. He would stay with Emily. But he doesn't because he has this desire to almost self-destructive impulses that are inherent in most people who are insecure, incredibly insecure. He has this self-destructive impulse, and it is this. This is such a fool's errand. He is so against odds to succeed in this, yet he does it, and he thinks he's being noble when in fact he's being incredibly stupid.
Well, and you know, he's spoiled.
Yes.
I mean, like, this
too.
is the other thing, is that he's never had anyone say no to him.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Or get the better of him, yeah.
Any problems he's run into, he's been able to buy his way out of. Yeah. And he thinks that that's because he's awesome.
Right.
And of course, he is awesome on a lot of ways.
Sure.
But at this level, he's come up against something that he can't defeat.
And by the way, no one gets this reaction from him other than Geddes and Susan. Susan later when he rips the room apart. But this.
Yeah. He has lost it. And this, hearing that voice as the door closes, you know.
Yeah. And Ray Collins is great too, as you spoke about, Steve, when he says, "Oh, your husband's just being, he's just being whatever, calling me. So I'm not a gentleman or whatever. Your husband's just being funny, calling me that." Like, all of that. It's just he's very composed.
Well, and he says one of the other great prophetic things is you're going to need more than one lesson.
Yes, and you're going to get more than one.
And you're going to get one.
Oh, I love it.
You know,
right? And this is the beginning of the end for Kane, right? All of this.
Yeah. Great cut to Leland.
Because now Leland knows, because Leland had a relationship with Emily, to know that Kane, who pushed all this idealistic shit, is actually a cheating, selfish, egotistical. Like, he finally has the confirmation. So he goes to drink. He gets himself drunk because he knows he has to confront him.
And it's not just, I don't think it's just that Kane's been having an affair. I think, and part of me thinks Leland might have known he was having an affair.
Oh, you're
it's
probably
that
right.
he throws away the cause for his own ego.
Right.
Is that's where is that belief. He believed in the Declaration of Principles on some level, even though he knew his friend's flaws. But now the Declaration of Principles is gone.
Yeah. And look at this scene, right? Fraud at the polls.
Yeah.
Right? Once again, what do we see from...
Fake news.
Thank you. What do we see from a certain network constantly promoting bullshit that is not correct because they want to placate their fans and not tell the truth, right?
Yeah.
Fraud at the polls. Like what's happening with Roy Moore and this whole thing that he's doing with Alabama is ridiculous. Same thing.
Yeah. Again, we have these low angles, and to get these low angles, by the way, and the biggest one's going to be coming up later, but they actually took out a jackhammer and dug a hole in the floor.
I heard it was an axe.
An axe.
That they cut through the floor with an axe in it because it was wooden floors on a set, and so they just went through. And Tolan put his camera under there because that's what Wells thought it would be nice to.
Because he wanted to have these heroic looks, and that's of course why you have to have ceilings on your sets.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, this is the some people never really learn their lessons.
And this is the giant brought down to a smallness. I love this scene.
It's amazing.
Yeah. There's so much in it.
Yeah. Well, and this is the only person who can even a little bit stand up to Kane, you know?
And yet still at the end, Steve, he doesn't leave his employee. He just leaves the location.
Yeah. He doesn't have anywhere else to go, you know?
I guess. I think it's because he still, in some small way, still cares for him.
Yeah. I think so. And needs him, you know? Because Leland is, without Kane, who would he be?
Right.
You know? I don't know that he have a job.
It's pretty much most people who get around Kane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and this idea, like this is where he's been building up for 20, however long they've been friends.
Yeah.
The ammunition, and now he's going to kind of let it come out.
Yeah.
This is what I really think about you.
Yeah.
And again, as we said, more than anyone else in this movie, he's right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
He's got his number.
Mm-hmm. No one understands him better than Leland does, in my opinion.
Yeah. What I love too, the sort of like, I'll get drunk too.
Yeah.
And that's sort of, you never get drunk,
Right. And this is the transit. Once again, this is a transition moment, much like they had with the old editor of the paper where they were making fun of him. Here we are in this office again.
Same place. Yeah.
Seeing the transition of what what Leland's talking about, which is unions,
right.
Unionizing, where Charles Foster Kane was like fighting for them to get their rights. Now they're like, they expect their rights. So it removes his cause,
right.
or his being at the front of this cause. And now it becomes something where everyone wants it as opposed to him winning it for them.
Well, and I think too, and I don't know the implication. It seems as if the implication to me when he talks about organized labor is that now the Kane papers are against organized labor.
Right.
Because now they've gotten a label. And this is something we see from all sides of politics in the news of like, let's label someone, are they an undocumented immigrant or an illegal alien?
Right.
And that is the policy based on how you refer to that group.
Yeah.
Again, these unbelievable low angle shots, and makes these people look so heroic.
Once again, I tell people to study the Caesar stuff that Wells did. There are books about it. Once again, these are things that he loved, the low angle stuff. He developed this during Caesar. It's only a couple of years later, 3 years later, that he's making Citizen Kane. And it is these shots from below to show these men both grandiose and then broken and destroyed,
Yeah. And that moment of betrayal, the reaction, I want to go to Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
That is the end of the friendship.
Right.
He
tries to convince him not. He says, it's cold, the wind to come up, and he's like, and both of them need each other. I think he needs him too, and this is why he agrees to.
Well, you have to have people that can call you on your shit.
Well, some people don't like that.
Right, but if you don't, Leland leaving, that's one of the other things that sends him to the dark places.
Absolutely.
Because he has nobody else. Nobody else is going to call him on his shit at all. Mm-hmm. Bernstein's not going to do it. Susan Alexander's not going to do it. There's nobody else.
Emily dies.
Yeah, Emily dies. Yeah. So there's nobody else to keep him in check, But
I love this line from this scene. A toast, Jedediah, to love on our terms. The only terms anyone ever knows. That's a powerful statement.
What do you think about that?
I think that's true.
I don't think we ever get things on our terms.
Well, I think we want to see it on. That's why they have that book like Love Languages. That's how we communicate our love.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand how other people communicate their love, but love on our terms, the only terms anyone ever knows, right? This whole idea.
Yeah, but the process of life is learning to understand love. Learning to understand you're not going to get it on your terms,
right? And
understand other terms.
Majority of the time,
yeah, and and part of his basic insensitivity is that's all he can think about is his own terms,
right? And this goes back to Steve's theory of the A to Z, which we'll talk about.
Sure.
This guy, love this guy.
Oh, he's great. And we get thrust. We jump forward several years, and we get thrust into this weird "what's going on" scene in the chaos of this opera house. Right. And of course, we're going to see this shot twice. Once from the direction of the audience, once from backstage direction.
Right.
And it is loud and chaotic and crazy and stressful.
And once again, we go from the quiet beginning of the end of the friendship between Leland and Kane into, well, he's happy, he's married Susan, built opera house, so she didn't leave him. This thing didn't affect him adversely. Only politically did it affect him adversely. Other than that, he's fine. He's still rich. He still has his stuff, and he builds an opera house.
Except we don't feel good.
No, of course not.
Yeah, we feel bad.
Yeah.
So here we are going up and up and up into the fly area of the stage. I'm sure you've been in big theaters like this where you climb. Oh, it's so cool backstage here. And we have this just perfect moment to tell us how we're supposed to feel about this singing. Go all the way up to the guys way up in the fly.
Right. Because
and now because I can't judge her opera singer, but they sure can.
Right.
And it's nice that he built the opera house in Chicago, because that's where Leland's the dramatic critic.
And I wonder if that's on purpose.
Yeah.
To get Leland's favorable review.
Yeah. Well, and we go to the Declaration of Principles again, and let's write a great review of this terrible opera. You have no principles, right? You know.
But then I think this is where Bernstein becomes more than just a fan, because he is his henchman. He is essentially his henchman. He is doing his bidding.
Well, it seems like no question that at this point he's running the papers.
Yeah.
You know, he's really running the company the way that he knows Kane would want it run.
As sweet as he is, I don't think he's absent of fault.
Yeah.
And
we also have to take a moment to talk about one of the stages of Kane, like exactly where he is. You have to figure out with the makeup artist, what age is he right now?
Right.
What size is he right now? And that fur coat, man, that is an outfit he's got on.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
And he had trouble maintaining his weight for the younger scenes.
Oh, yeah.
He would put like these little fishnets that would yank his cheeks back to the back of his neck. Yeah, I read this in a couple of
I should get some of those. Would it work?
Maybe for the face.
And here you see Bernstein like kind of cluing in the people about what's sort of going on, that he and Leland haven't seen each other for a long time. And Bernstein's keeping things under control, you know, because that's his job.
Right.
Man, you got to want to have a Bernstein.
He's diminutive, but he's powerful.
He's a
in his own
powerful
way.
guy and sharp and knows what's going on.
That's right.
Again, we're in these wide angle shots with that bottle huge in the foreground.
Yeah. And I love the age makeup is great on them as well.
Yeah.
On Bernstein, how come they can't get it right in 2017, 2018, but they got it right in 1941?
Well, part of it's film. Part of it's film and black and white. It's easier to do with film. Film is very forgiving.
Okay.
HD is not forgiving at all.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And color makes it much, much harder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still doesn't
but these are great artists.
Still doesn't play Mr. Saturday Night. That's the worst I've ever seen in my entire life.
And here we have Leland's bad review.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I love that Kane finishes a
bad review.
Right. Because he knows his friend. He knows his friend.
Why is he finishing that bad review?
I think because in some egotistical way, he thinks he's honoring his friend by finishing the review the way his friend would finish it.
I think so. Here's the thing: is that I think he's trying to tell his friend he's honorable.
Right, he's trying to show his friend. That's what I mean. But ego.
He's not actually honorable.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Well, and this is a direct connection to the previous scene with Leland, where Leland in the previous scene attacked his principles. So you don't really have principles. So in this scene, he's going to show him that he does.
Right.
To convince him to love him.
So here's a question for Steve Morris.
Yeah.
What do you think is going through Bernstein's mind as he watches Kane finish the review improv right here, and he says to him, I didn't read that. I didn't see that.
Yeah.
What do you think is going through Bernstein's mind here? Does he find even more nobility in Kane?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
I think he buys Kane's, I think he goes, because there's the moment when Leland wakes up and he says, he's writing a bad review.
Yeah.
That'll show you.
That'll show you.
Yeah. Yeah. Because essentially Leland is the friend of Kane that doesn't buy the bullshit, and Bernstein is the friend of his that on an essential level loves him.
Well, there's this essential divide, Steve, between people who think because you're family and friends, you have to defend them all the time.
Right.
And there are people who go, no, we're all humans. Friends and family can be wrong. Strangers can be right. But there is a real legitimate divide in people. And I've confronted it because I'm not the kind of person who thinks just because you're my friend or you're my family member, you're right about a situation. I'm more objective, like watching what I think is right. But there are people who are like, well, if you're related to me or you're my friend, then I will defend your no matter how wrong you are, I will defend you in a battle or in a discussion and debate. And that's always been unsettling to me because then you're not being pure.
Well, yeah, I've had this conversation go around like you're in a bar and your friend starts a fight with somebody else and they're in the wrong. They attack someone innocent. Whose side do you do?
I drag my friend away from the situation.
That's what I do too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't hurt somebody innocent.
Neither would I.
Even though that's my friend. But I would step in the middle.
But if his friends jumped in to help the guy beat up my friend, then I would jump in.
Well, this is where it gets tough. There's another great shot, by the way.
Yes. Kane in the foreground.
Yeah.
Typing away,
and then you're fired. It's hard not to get swept into the movie.
But I think in this moment, he's willing. You're fired. See, I think Leland's smile here as he comes up to see Charles doing the negative review, I think that was the walls coming down and the possibility of reconciliation in their friendship. And then Kane fires him.
Yep.
And Kane fires him without looking over his shoulder, without wanting the reconciliation. And that's when Cotton walks away. And that's that look on his face of like, yep, it's over. And he walks away.
And we had another one of those slow dissolves. And I think, because I think that Kane bought the firing with the bad review.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
In his mind,
he's like, I'm finishing your bad review, therefore I'm honoring you, and now I can fire you.
I'm getting the upper hand on you emotionally in my mind.
Yep. Yeah. And really, that's hurting himself. That's a knife in his own soul because he needs Leland.
Well, people with deep insecurities have that desire to have the upper hand emotionally or noble wise or ego. They need that upper hand in order to function in a situational relationship.
Yeah.
And because if they don't, then they destroy themselves thinking that they're constantly in a submissive position with someone.
Well, and I mean, to be frank, Kane is a study of a great man. Frequently, you don't get to be a great man by being easy or nuanced.
Yeah.
Right. Like most of these people we see throughout history are filled with flaws.
Yeah.
The only exceptions I can think of, the biggest is Abraham Lincoln. Seems like he was gentle and soft and sensitive and filled with nuance. Mm-hmm. But most of the people are like, they leave some bodies in their wake,
It's true. I love the idea of sneaking in the cigars and, this idea that he wants to keep them alive. And,
yeah, they have some strange idea. They want to keep me alive. Yeah.
And the nurses and everything.
It's just, there's so many great lines in this movie.
There really are. It's no truer then than it is now.
Yeah. I love old Joseph Cotton. Mm-hmm. He is definitely an actor that seems to be made by the Mercury Theater and Orson Welles. He brings him to Hollywood, and he's just so much fun. I like him in so many movies.
Shadow of a Doubt, Third Man.
Yeah.
There's so many great roles.
And Emerson's.
And Emerson's, right. Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So the movie's only going to get darker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now we go to Susan. And we go back to Susan.
Yeah.
We know we're coming to the end of the movie.
Right.
Because we're ending where we started, which is with Susan.
Right.
And once again, we go through the sign, except this time it's not lit. It's not raining.
Yeah.
And we go through the skylight again. But she's not blotto.
Yeah. And again, really good makeup on her too.
Yeah. Incredible.
Because hers is more subtle, Well,
because she's younger.
Yeah. And it's
a great portrayal by her, Dorothy Comingore.
Well, in her way of looking at Kane, you see the love for him, and you see that she took a long time to kind of figure him out and come to some wisdom and some perspective about him, and is still pretty broken by him.
Well, we talked about this on a podcast, like I think months ago or a long time ago. We talked about this idea of Susan. How much is she changed by the relationship, and is she still is she grateful that she went through the relationship because it did show her strength that she didn't know she had? Right? Because she fought back against this man. This was a girl who was worried about her mom not or having visitors, worried about her landlady having visitors, and now she's married into this incredible fortune, attached to this incredible man, but endured all this shit through her formative years, her 20s and 30s, of this kind of emotional browbeating, emotional destruction from this man, then found her strength and walked away from him. And there's a power in that she may have found within herself. She may not have known that she had.
I'm kind of struggling with the word grateful. Is that there's no question that what you say is true, is that she had to find strength through going through some horrible, horrible stuff to finally stand up for herself at the end.
Right.
And had she not had that experience, she wouldn't have found that strength.
Right.
But you look at someone who's been through a terrible experience, do they go, I was grateful I had that experience? My feeling is probably not, maybe, but this is one of the things just in life is that sometimes it's hard to regret things in the past because you are where you are.
Yeah.
And they made you who you were.
Exactly.
Even if they were horrible.
Right.
But am I grateful for those? And I didn't have things like this. Are people grateful for them? I don't know.
Right.
That's an interesting word. Again, we see the great performance. I totally agree of our opera teacher. He is fantastic. And Kane's just, you will do what I say. Even though realistic, it's like, why are you trying to make her be an opera singer?
Right.
Like, why?
Because she is his
battlefield.
She is his battlefield. From everyone that's told him no about now, because he's starting to hear no more and more ever since the election. He hears more and more. So he tries to turn Susan in because he thinks that she's this pure, sweet thing that should be loved by the masses.
Right, but you could have her. Well, this is what's interesting is that Marion Davies was close with Charlie Chaplin and a really great comic actress.
She gave up her
but
career.
Hearst wanted her to be in dramatic movies, and it's like, if you had said she's going to be a popular singer, she probably would have done fine.
Right.
But you're forcing her to pick a battle you can win. Why is he picking a battle he cannot win?
Once again, self-destructive impulses.
Yeah.
Just like the whole battle with Susan from the beginning is a battle he can't win.
Well, and I guess what's the point of winning a battle that you can win?
True.
I mean, if you're the wealthiest man in the world, everything's easy for you. So there's no triumph in, winning, but winning something that's impossible, that would be something.
It's a valid point. But again, that's ego, isn't it?
Oh, well, yeah. What's this movie about?
Yeah, exactly. And for him to convince himself that she's good when he knows she's not a good singer.
He knows she's not good.
He knows.
And so now we're back here again, except we're shooting it from the opposite direction. And we have the same sort of chaos. And now we're backstage behind her as everything is happening.
Yeah.
And it's so, the way this is scored is so painful. It's like tense and stressful to watch.
Yeah. That sounds like an old Egyptian movie,
And man, that's a great shot. Yeah. Looking through at the audience.
And this is what it feels like to be on a stage like that. It really does. When you can't see the audience and you're just like, God, I hope I get it right. I hope there's people actually out there.
Fantastic shot. Well, this is where you like Greg Toland's genius in lighting. Oh, yeah. That shadow going across his face. And again, we're going to touch in with our characters. We're back in time with Leland as he's looking at the program.
I mean, he's already looking at the program because he knows she sucks.
Yeah.
And he's only there because he has to be.
Yeah. And we're going to see Bernstein in the audience who doesn't really understand it. He doesn't know that she's bad. He didn't know what he's doing there.
Right.
Yeah.
It's the whole gaggle of reporters there. They work for him.
Yeah. And you see her awkwardness and and I love his reactions through the whole thing. Like, yeah, you're doing okay. You're doing no, that one's pretty good. That was pretty good. Okay. Now relax here. Bernstein's falling asleep.
Yeah, of course he is.
And we think this is like a 3-hour-long opera. I love the thing that he's doing with his program, tearing it slowly into shreds.
I'm not gonna
Great over the shoulder from Wells.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Steve. I've been to plays or performances like that.
I have too.
Where you're just ripping, you want to rip that program and just do it.
I may or may not have been in one that you were acting in.
I will absolutely accept a Thrance situation.
The Thrance. It still wasn't the worst one.
What? What was the worst one?
Oh,
Which one? Tell me.
America.
What was America?
It was a 9/11 play by a...
Was I in that?
No, not you. No, Thrance is the worst.
Thrance is my worst.
Thrance was your worst. Okay. No, this was someone else.
I love him slamming his finger.
Yeah.
It's very like Marx Brothers-esque.
Well, there is comedy in this movie.
That's when he's look at it. Look he gives the guy. He's like, who are you to...
So we're about to get to a moment with Orson Welles where the power of his performance is so intense.
Yeah.
When there was little polite applause. I love the torn up program.
Yeah.
Little polite applause. The applause ends. And that Kane, through an act of will, starts the applause again.
Yeah.
And this is it right here. Camera pulls back. He's not clapping while everyone else claps. The clapping ends. And then he's like, no, that wasn't enough. Look at, just the energy coming off of him.
Wow.
It's like radioactive.
So you and I see this differently.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone's clapping and he is caught up in his own internal dialogue about the whole situation, about what his own, because she's not a human being to him. she's a prop to him, to what he's trying to his
Yes,
own
I agree.
battle. So then when he realizes he hasn't been clapping with the rest of the audience, he feels like he's going to be found out, so he starts overcompensating and claps even loudly and
interesting.
more. That's my opinion. And you may be right, I don't know, but that's how I see
yours
it.
makes total sense.
That's how I see it, is that he's so caught up in this thing.
But either way,
Yes.
there is a lot.
Yes.
That is a lot going on. And of course, she's gotten the bad review from the Examiner.
Right.
You know, he doesn't tell her that he wrote it.
But we start to see these ugly things from Susan, though.
Yeah.
Right? Like she says,
Well, she is
what kind of friend is that?
Well, she is so unlikable. I mean, I feel terrible for her.
Right.
But I don't like her.
No. Right. Where's the sweet girl he met that
Her
was like
screeching, harpy, and he's put her through this horrible thing.
right.
And we find out about this $25,000 check he sent to Leland. Again, I'm going to buy your love and fire you at the same time. And I love this beautiful storytelling. $25,000 check, and there's torn up things in there.
This is the check.
It's the check, of course.
Right.
Beautiful storytelling.
But what's most important is the Declaration of Principles. Yeah. Oh, God, what an ultimate fuck you at the end, man.
And then you're awful funny.
But let's see how old he is.
Yeah. And he says, what is it? An antique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he knows Leland is right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. And it drives him insane. Why? Because Leland represents old money, which is what Thatcher was, which is what all these people are to him. And so the fact that they ended up being right about him drives him insane.
Well, and I wonder if he hadn't gotten the Declaration of Principles right now, if he would have let Susan out of the opera singing in the scene. But at this moment, he's going, no, you're going to keep doing it. I can't control any of these other things, but I can control you.
I think it's a valid argument to make, Steve.
And that shot of the shadow coming over her face, man.
So amazing. And her just cowering and going back. That's a prey afraid of its predator.
No question about it. That is a pure dominance moment. Yeah. And now we go into this montage, you know.
Poor woman, man.
Yeah. I mean, well, you've been on stage. Obviously, we just talked about it in something that wasn't good.
Yes.
I've been on stage. There was a moment I had a monologue where I was so clear that the audience hated me.
Yeah.
Like, not hated the character, but just hated. I mean, the play wasn't good either. And I remember I was in the show for 6 weeks. And for 6 weeks, I had to go out on stage and do this moment.
It's the worst.
And it was and to have to do it at this level, go around the world and be hated.
Well, listen, doing Harry Potter for a year and a half, 4 shows, 4 or 5 shows every 45-minute set. It's 30 new people who are walking in judging you every single time.
Yeah, but that one you were great and they loved you.
Well,
I'm sure
but there were shows where I didn't get loved and people didn't clap and people just walked out feeling uninspired. Yeah. So the balance is constantly there. It gets to you. It fucking
Pretty
gets
sure,
to you.
by the way, this is an oversized spoon in medicine.
Oh, yeah?
In the foreground, I think. And I think the phone later on is also oversized in order to get this perspective. But this is, again, beautiful storytelling. This is show don't tell at its best. We understand from this shot exactly what has just happened, which is she's attempted suicide.
And I'm surprised it's not Bernstein with him. I've always been surprised by this moment that it's not Bernstein with him.
Yeah. It's got to be when reality does hit Kane, and it does a few times, like things he can't really hide from. You know,
but even here, he won't admit that she tried to kill herself, because then that would mean that he's in the wrong.
Of course,
but the doctor knows.
Well, but the doctor still cowers to him.
Of course,
you know, it's like, okay, yeah,
he's got to get that paycheck.
Yeah. Well, and it is, you know, to be fair, that is a really tough.
Yes.
You know.
But again, the doctor does what you're supposed to do. What Kane should have done when he was confronted by fuck, why can't I remember his name? The boss guy. Geddes. When he's confronted by Geddes, that's what you're supposed to do. Sometimes it's not worth the battle. Sometimes, like, you have to swallow your pride and live to fight another day.
Well, and this is, you know, we see Kane sit alone and go through something. Sometimes it feels like sometimes he feels the need to punish himself, you know, for his sins.
Absolutely.
And this is one of those times.
Yeah. But you think he feels terrible, and yet he still tries to push her. because he says, this is when you're supposed to fight. This is when you're supposed to do these kinds of things. And then he finally realizes that, this is and she's so
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She almost looks like a wild animal that's been caught.
Well, and the other thing you see in this scene, she does love him.
Of course she does.
Is for everything he's done to her.
Mm-hmm. Well, because she knows that he did it from a place of wanting her to be successful, wanting her to pursue her dream, wanting her to be this incredible this opera singer, and unfortunately, it's not possible. And so she realized it for herself, and she just wants him to realize it so they can both let it go.
Yeah. And now he says this thing of like, we're going to do things your way, not my version of your way, but your way.
Mm-hmm. And he's lying.
It's not true.
And he's lying.
Well, I think he thinks it's true.
Sure. But once again, he's trying to be noble, but he cannot stop his impulses to have things his way.
Well, and it is hard for any of us, like if I'm trying to do something for my wife, I'm trying, as much as I'm trying to do it what she wants, I'm doing my version of what she wants.
Sure.
Because I am me.
But you wait for her to validate that your version of what she wants works.
Well, and this is the thing about being sensitive, a thing that Kane is not, is like, how do you check in with the other person and feel their feelings?
Well, I disagree that I think he's sensitive. I think he's a sensitive person. I don't think he's considerate.
Well, we're using sensitive in two terms. Okay. He is sensitive in that things hurt him.
Yes, that's what
But he is not sensitive to other people and their feelings.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, he is not empathetic.
Yes, bingo. Yeah. Do you think she's better off building puzzles and holding like meetings with their friends who fly in and all these get-togethers and hosting these parties? Do you think she's happier doing this shit than she was
doing the opera?
Doing the opera.
Oh yeah. Really? I think this is a miserable existence too.
Yeah, well, I think they're both miserable.
But that was a publicly miserable existence. I mean,
true.
Well, and maybe I'm putting my own stamp on things. It's like to be left alone, to be in the fancy house,
right,
and having people come in having parties all the time who probably aren't really her friends, and it's all sort of phony. That still sounds better than having the world stare at you while you're being humiliated over and over again.
Well, and I think this is where Hearst and Luella Parsons and the people involved with Hearst, you can create a little bit of understanding why they were pissed off about this movie, because this is Hearst and Marion Davies now. They had seen how much Marion Davies really loved Hearst and put up with some of the stuff, Hearst's behavior,
right.
But it was always love. Like there was always genuine, and all the accounts that you read, there was genuine love for him. Well, and she's like 50 years her senior, but still she had love for him.
Absolutely. Well, when Hearst went bankrupt, she sold her jewelry property and gave him the money.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be clear, this is really their lives. Marion Davies did love jigsaw puzzles, and they did have in San Simeon these soirees of people every weekend coming up for these huge parties and go on pick. I mean, this is
but she enjoyed doing them.
She did,
which is different than what Susan Alexander does.
Yeah,
right. And so that's where I think the anger comes.
These are cool puzzles, by the way. They're really cool. They made this world so bleak and so empty and so cold.
Right.
Yeah. By the way, the statues on either side of the fireplace, my understanding is they're statues that are identical to those in miniature next to her piano in the apartment where Kane first meets her.
How interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, the sound design with the echoing and the deep focus shots, like they're so far away from each other and isolated and cold. Like you're in this beautiful space that just seems totally devoid of humanity.
It's akin to what he has with Emily in a different way. With Emily's, it's more immediate and you see the changes. But every single time you see them, they're further and further apart.
Yeah.
Every single time now, her and Susan.
It's a really good point.
I mean, it's just a yell across the room to him.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Well, and talking about how, we're going to go on this picnic and everything is within Kane's control. And by the way, this is also true of Hearst, that he had these people over and they really had to do what he wanted them to do.
Of course.
Yeah.
What's that? The Cat's Meow, that movie kind of highlights that a little bit.
Right.
If you guys, speaking of Edward Herrmann.
So Edward Herrmann, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I like Edward Herrmann a lot. He was
very good. He was a very good actor.
Yeah. There's this really weird bit of animation. There's like an animated bird in this shot that always seems strange to me.
Yeah, it's a pterodactyl. It's not a bird. It's a pterodactyl. Which I think is stock footage they used from King Kong.
Oh, really?
From what I think, what I heard. Yeah,
right there.
See, that's a pterodactyl.
Yeah, that's bizarre. Yeah, maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Man, I would so love to go to one of Kane's parties. I really would.
That's all you, son.
Yeah.
Not me. That seems like an exercise in grandiosity.
It definitely is. That's no question.
Look how old he is now, man. He's really...
And in this weird tent, like we're out, that's a picnic? Wow.
I love the physicality of how he's sitting, like how his chest, his belly is just so almost consuming his head.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at it. Like, where is he mentally when he listens to her? It's almost like he's high, dude. Like he's on opium or something. He just seems so...
He's like Jabba the Hutt. At this point. You know what I mean?
Well,
like he's created his little pleasure world.
Yeah.
And he's not getting any pleasure from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's so sad about Kane.
Yeah.
Is he at the second half of his life is he's just expenditures on his whims and controlling everyone for his whims and has no joy.
Yeah.
The joy, the Kane that we met when we got to the paper, when they took over the paper, that guy was having fun.
Yeah.
This guy's not.
No, right. That's what happens. But I think what's great about this scene, when you juxtapose it with the scene earlier where she cowered in his shadow, there is no shadow now.
Well, and here's the moment. You gotta love me, and he slaps her.
But she stays standing on her knees. She does not sit back on her heels. No. She takes the slap and she says, don't apologize or don't say you didn't mean it or whatever.
Well, him slapping her, that is her triumph.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
That is her, like, I finally got to you. Because she has finally figured out what Leland figured out.
Right.
Is that it's all about this love on your terms, And what does he do? When people get his number.
Yeah. Lashes out.
Yeah.
Whether it's verbally or, as we see here, physically. Yeah.
Okay.
Ugh. Now we're going to see this scene again.
Yep. Again, he's going to try to convince her to stay.
Mm-hmm. But it's almost like, dude, it's almost like a daughter's room.
It is.
The dolls, the little animals, drawn on the walls, and the big lace curtains, the dolls on the fucking shelves. Like, all of it feels like, in a sense, because that's probably what he sees her as, this like childlike person or infantile or teenager type person. So,
well, and it's funny. He almost in this scene gets her to stay.
Yes.
It's very close.
Oh,
almost.
Once again, these are tragic moments throughout the whole movie where he can find happiness, but his hubris, his ego, his desire to be loved overwhelms what he should say or do in certain moments.
Yeah. This is it'll be your way, not my way. And she softens towards him, and he's reaching out and he's accepting that she can have her own rights and her own space. And then he says, "You can't do this to me."
Which is the same thing he said to her already before.
Yeah.
And we see this in relationships sometimes. People apologize saying the same things.
Yep.
And the people come back to them because there is a comfortability in the relationship.
Well, you want to believe that it's going to change.
You do.
In general, people don't change that much.
True.
Or only very slowly over time.
But I think it's the evil you know versus the evil you don't know.
True.
And sometimes people stay in relationships longer than they should.
And here's her moment of strength.
Yeah.
I can't do this to you? Oh, yes, I can.
What I like is how she started it. Yeah. Oh, I see. It's you this is happening to, which is really great.
Well, Kane is solipsistic. The universe entirely exists around him.
Yeah.
And that, man, Orson Welles' performance and the shot of her going through those doors. And now we're back to Susan Alexander. I love. She's become kind of a fun broad.
Yep.
At the end,
a fun broad. Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
She's been through a lot of stuff.
Well, she drinks. When she's not drinking,
drunk,
she has this nice lucidity to her. Well, she's older. She understands now, having lived through the experience.
Yeah. And this is another great moment. I feel kind of sorry for Mr. Kane. Don't you think I do?
Don't you think I do?
Yeah.
Right. Because she knows he could have been better. She saw the possibilities of him, which is probably why she stayed married to him for so long.
Yeah.
But in the end, he couldn't do it. He couldn't help himself.
And in each scene, we have ways of getting in and out. Like, so with Leland, we had those dissolves in and out.
Right.
Here we have these. And again, every single scene is done a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Different sense of style, new ideas. Okay. This guy, he's the butler.
This almost feels like something out of a noir.
Well, Kane's really influential in noir. The use of shadows and the way it's filmed.
Of course.
Very, very influential.
Yeah.
We're right. We could tell that we're sort of in the detritus now of his life. We're right at the end. All of the stuff is just sitting around.
Yeah. And the people he's around are more opportunistic.
Right.
Right. So
this guy didn't care about Kane.
Right.
You get the sense he was a really good professional.
Right.
And he knew what to do.
Mm-hmm. But how you feel about yourself is how you choose the people you surround yourself with, right? So maybe I'm sure he had, at this point hated himself so deeply, he chose these kind of opportunistic fake. I love the
cuck to the cockatoos
is everything.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're getting into this nice vibe between him and this, and all of a sudden it shocks you back into this scene.
Well, that's what I mean by a hard cut. Mm-hmm. That is a shocking cut, and that we're just at the end of the moment that we left before with her walking out, and now we're going to go back into this room and watch one of the great, again, the intensity and power of Orson Welles' performance and the stiffness of his body. Mm-hmm. And he cut his hand pretty badly, apparently, in the middle of this.
He did it in one take.
Yeah,
which is incredible.
Yeah. Apparently after it, he said, I really felt that, or something like that.
It's obvious.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like a man completely going out of control.
Right.
A man who's only lost emotions once earlier in the film, as you said, with Geddes.
Yeah.
And this is the full tantrum.
Because I think in some way he's angry at her because he sacrificed so much for her in his mind. Right? He gave up his marriage to Emily. He gave up his political career. He put his reputation on the line for her as a singer. He built her an opera house. He did all these things, and she can still leave him because, he mistreats her or doesn't like and it's the vanity. It's the ego of it all.
It's so funny because, again, I interpret it different. To me, this is all about his realization that he, in fact, has nothing.
Oh, really?
That he has nothing in his life.
Wow.
Completely... All of that he who wanted control and love on his terms.
Yeah.
In the end of his life, he has nothing.
Well, why destroy her room? Why not go destroy the living room or the whatever, the statues and why her room?
Because that's where he is. I mean, I think what you say is true too, but I think this is just there's I can't control anything. I can't.
And there it is.
And there it is.
Now did he give that to her? What is the story behind the snow globe? This is something that has haunted me ever since the first couple of times I've seen it. Was this in his mother's things? We don't know.
I wouldn't think it would be in his mother's things.
Okay.
But did he give it to her, and was he aware of it, or did he just discover it in that moment and it reminded him of his, I don't know the answer.
Right, which is what great films do, man.
Yeah.
They have these
and again, the publicness of his collapse.
But it breaks your heart. He is legitimately in tears here.
Oh yeah.
He's almost childlike in his sadness.
He's broken down to nothing.
Yeah.
In front of all these people.
He's almost regressed, in my opinion, to that 10-year-old boy or 9-year-old boy out there in the sled.
I agree. Well, and now
because once again, this powerful woman has left him. His mom left him. Susan has left him.
Yeah.
Emily left him.
Leland is, gone.
But it's the women that leave him. That is, I think, more powerful.
And here we have infinite reflections of himself.
Which I think is important because the whole movie is about everyone else giving you their reflection of him.
That's a great point. Yeah.
That's,
Well, and it was so, I just go back to this thing of, I really think Kane is unknowable. As much as we can talk about him and learn about him, what he's really feeling and thinking, it's hard to know.
It's up to us to decide as we watch it.
Yeah.
Because I think in some ways, Steve, you can make a case that he didn't know himself or he'd been smarter about how he did certain things. I think he believed he was a certain way and he found out that he wasn't.
Yeah.
And that was the real destruction of his soul, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, and this is what's so weird is how prophetic this movie is about Welles.
I've say this numerous times. It's amazing how it is. And I wonder, and this is the chicken and the egg thing. Did this movie haunt him so much that he became what he becomes in this movie? Or was this prophetic by accident? I don't know.
Or did he see into himself what, this side of him?
Right.
Because he was a person at 24 believed he could do anything. Mm-hmm. And then he was a person who...
Shit, before that when he was 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now we have this great montage of packing up.
Yeah.
And this idea of cataloging a person's stuff to find out who they are. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to have someone do that to my stuff.
So here's the deal. If they have the sled, he must have gone possibly.
He definitely did.
Did he?
I think he definitely did.
Okay.
I think he
had
his
mother's things.
Or he had them all shipped to Florida. But how much has he gone through them?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Did he ever go? So that's why I think in some way the snow globe was there in her mother's things, but maybe not. I don't know.
I bet we could look at what year snow globes were invented.
Oh, good point.
Find that
good
out.
point.
Yeah. And we see little bits of things we saw before, including that the cup that he got when he came back.
Right.
And again, we get this question of, we come back to Rosebud. Did you ever find out what it meant?
Yeah.
And then, of course, he never did.
No. There's Joseph Cotton in there somewhere.
Oh, is he?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know.
Because they were all at the beginning. He was at the beginning because, he's in shadows.
Right.
Obviously, the new versions, you can see him because of the HDTV stuff, but
Wow.
Right.
You can still adjust your TV.
I think, see, there he is. That's him in the hat, right?
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See, and we don't know that it's him, but you can tell when he sneaks into the light right there.
Mm.
By the way, when I first saw this, I always thought that was Katharine Hepburn in the hat and glasses, the woman there.
Here we have and this is, what's a life? These are all pieces in a jigsaw puzzle. Mm-hmm. And I go back to this. This is this idea that we cannot figure it out. I believe what he says, that Rosebud would not explain things, even though we find out what Rosebud is.
Right.
I think Rosebud it does explain something, but it doesn't explain Kane.
Well, and I think unless we write biographies of ourselves, are always going to be kept alive by people's memories of us.
Right.
Only we can really know ourselves. But
if we do.
If we do, right.
Yeah.
But it's people's memories of us, people's interpretations of our behaviors that are what's going to be talked about once we die.
Well, and I've had so many experiences, I'm sure you've had them too, where you actually hear someone else's interpretation of your behavior and you're like, well, that wasn't what I was thinking at all. Right. I was doing that for an entirely different set of reasons.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes someone calls you on a thing and you go, oh, wow, I do that.
Yes.
Maybe that is why I do that thing. How weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now we have just this slow move over all the stuff, just the detritus of his life. All boxed up and dirty and really empty. This is for as full a room as this is, this looks like a very empty life.
Which to me mirror he collected people as well. Yeah. And this is what he left them with, or this is how he was left, or how he, how they left him, empty.
Yeah.
Broken, old.
And we're slowly going to move. There it is. We see the sled for the first time. And the first time you see it, did you know it was a sled?
And next to a picture of his mother.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Did you know it was a sled before you saw it? I didn't.
Oh, I did when he was throwing it in. Right, like right here, I could.
No, I mean, but before you watched the movie,
no,
I didn't either.
I didn't know it was. No, thank God, and because I was young when I saw it, and I didn't have it spoiled for me.
And seeing that Rosebud, and again, very smartly, they go into the real close up to make damn sure that you see it's a sled. This, I don't know that this is the first spoiler alert thing in history, but this is one of the great. Final moments of a film of all time. Watching that word Rosebud burn off. And what all that's why I go back. The scene with mom and dad and what all those relationships are. And of course, where does the man's life go? It goes up in smoke.
And a black smoke.
Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Good point. Yeah, very much so.
Yeah. But the music is very triumphant in a way.
Darkly triumphant.
Yeah. And we're back to no trespassing.
Right.
We're back to you don't actually get to come in.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an unsettling, haunting film for me.
That's why I love it so much. And the light's out. Look, the light that let us in is now out.
Yeah. All right. So That's Kane.
So great to watch it again, man. I love this movie so effing much, dude. And then,
Yep. And I love the credits, by the way. We should talk about this. It's a great credits sequence. Is that we get these little clips from all these people. Joseph Cotton, Dorothy Commingore.
Right.
I love credits like this. I really like movies that do them. It's a lot of fun. The disturbing Agnes Moorehead. Ruth Warwick.
Yeah.
And it's interesting the lines they chose.
Yeah. You're going to get one of those. That's such a great scene, man.
Hilarious Erskine Sanford. I wish there was more Everett Sloan movies in the world. He's so great.
Lady from Shanghai, so many good. But he had a tragic end too. So if you read the stuff,
William Allen, by the way, did a lot of the directing when Orson was on camera because they're never on screen together.
Oh, how interesting!
So it was William Allen that Orson checked in with to say how was my performance.
Damn.
Yeah.
I was so grateful to get to see William Allen talk about it. Yeah,
that's really cool.
It meant a lot. I saw Kirk Douglas introduce Spartacus 4 years ago, and I saw Allen 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Everything.
Wow.
See, look, and this is in a way which is so funny. Look, and Orson, of course, puts himself last. That's almost egotistical to put yourself last, trying to convey that you're not as egotistical as you actually are.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing you can do. Honestly, what else? Wherever he puts himself, it's his movie.
I guess. Exactly.
Yeah,
and then editing Robert Wise. People should know that's Robert Wise who directed West Side Story. Oh no,
West Side Story?
West Side Story, yeah, and Star Trek: The Motion Picture, numerous other things. Yeah,
great
Sound
director.
of Music. That's right. Yeah. And this was like,
This is 1941, and this is still unlike any movie ever made.
Yeah.
It is Citizen Kane. That's it.
And for those who are watching this, maybe for the first or second time, Herman Mankiewicz, that guy who hosts on TCM, Joseph Mankiewicz, I think his name is,
he's the grandson.
He's the grandson of Herman Mankiewicz, right?
Yeah.
And at times he defends his father's contribution to Citizen Kane a little too fervently for my taste. But, people have their egos.
It's your family.
Yeah.
So I hope you enjoyed our very first full commentary track. I really enjoyed doing it. It was a lot of fun.
This was a lot of fun, especially because I don't know if we've ever watched it together.
No, we did because we saw it. We went to the Chinese and saw it together.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Which was amazing.
Yes.
Yeah. So if this was your first time viewing Citizen Kane, I think you've made an odd choice, but I want you to go back and now watch it and really sit down and watch it again because it is a powerful, fascinating movie. If you get a chance to see it in the theater, there's nothing like seeing it on a big screen with a real audience. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah.
I want to echo Steve's sentiments. Thanks for listening to our commentary and you've got a glimpse into Steve and I's like unabashed love for this movie and respect for this movie and Orson Welles himself. And so that's it's great to share that with each other and then share it with you as well. And if you haven't watched the movie and you watched it this way for the first time, God love you, but go watch the movie multiple times. I guarantee you, no matter where you are in life, you will get different things out of it every time you watch it. And you'll notice different things and different things will affect you in certain ways every single time you watch it.
And if you figured out what Citizen Kane means and who he is and if you have the answers, then please visit us on Facebook at the Cine-Files. You can leave comments on our YouTube site. You can leave reviews on iTunes. We love getting the reviews. They're really important. You can subscribe to us there on iTunes, on YouTube, on TuneIn, on Spotify, on Stitcher, on all sorts of places. You can support us on Patreon by going to patreon.com/thecine-files. You can buy Citizen Kane and any other movie we've ever done on cinephiles.net. And as always, you can reach me at SR Morris on Twitter. John, where can they reach you?
You can always reach me at The Roca Says on Twitter and on Instagram. I don't know what else to add other than that.
We had so much fun doing this, and we'd like to know if you enjoyed this commentary track and you want us to do more of them, let us know, and we can make that more of a regular part of the Cine-Files.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun to do, and I did it. There were no notes in front of me. There's not going to be any editing. So if you want more of them, we certainly can think about doing some more commentary tracks. All right. Well, that's it for this week. We will see you next time on the Cine-Files.